Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Stat Check episode 106. Wake me up when copy strikes end. Sorry, September ends. We can't sing it because we like to be monetized. I hope everybody's doing well on this fine Tuesday evening. As Nathan picked the episode name this week, which means it's not funny. It's just a name of the thing, and that's how this goes. How is everybody doing tonight? I am Innes. I'm joined by Nathan and Jeremy. We are here to talk about all things Warhammer stats and vaguely event related from the past week or so. And we're going to kick it off. Nathan, how you been? How's your last week or so?
I'm doing great. Been going through all of my armies and kind of cataloging all of the stuff that I've got so I can set up a thing so I can go through and paint everything. Kind of self-motivate a little bit to get everything painted and some armies rounded out instead of like looking at everything that comes out and going, ooh, shiny. And then not ever finishing a project. We're going to try to finish all these projects. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I saw Beetlejuice, the original Beetlejuice yesterday in preparation for seeing the new Beetlejuice movie tonight. Which is,
I think, is the joke.
Yes, don't say it 3 times, so I cannot say it again.
Other than that, unbroken. You can say Beetlejuice, something else, Beetlejuice, and you're fine.
Well, the movie's called
Community, so I don't know which rules we're following. Like, are we following the meta reference to it? In which case, it's just 3 times as tall, and then he shows up. Like, do we have to have him on as a guest spot now?
We do. Maybe he'll show up in Anthony's circle in a second. But the new movie is, creatively called Beetlejuice. After the first Beetlejuice movie. So, yeah,
works.
Great. We've used that bit to extremis now.
We've managed to get through the
we exhausted that 30 whole seconds.
I did use like every single ounce of my free time over the weekend since Space Marine 2 early access started to play Space Marine 2. Every single minute of free time that I could scrounge up, I turned into Space Marine 2 time, so I beat the campaign, which has some of the funniest sequences ever that actually made Ultramarines maybe even kind of slightly cool. I don't know. Maybe just a little, guys. Ultramarines might be cool now. Might just be a thing. Yeah, looking forward to doing some operations in that game, using even more free time to do that instead of painting to finish these projects, even though I just said that was a plan for the rest of this year. These are just choices. We're just making choices all the way down.
Work at your own pace and just make sure you're having fun.
True. That's good advice for everybody.
Finish it on our schedule so that we can farm you for content, Nathan.
I mean, I guess. Yeah. I mean, if everybody wants to join for hobby days, we'll do hobby days, I suppose. You all can watch me suffer greatly.
Jeremy, how about yourself?
I too spent an extraordinary amount of time this past 4 days playing Space Marine 2. I have 33 hours in the game already. But that's going to slow down considerably because I started in a new role today. So, new job, woo! Less free time, boo.
Congrats, though. Jobs are good, I hear.
Yeah, something about needing money and like saving for the future or something.
Existing in a capitalist society in which we need to trade money for goods and or services.
In this case, it's services. Yeah, I'm doing well. Game is ton of fun. I've also been cracking out the Votan again because I should probably practice before Champs Cup so I know how that army works again.
Maybe just a little.
Yeah. And I'm getting ready to start kicking off some boarding actions nights at the Dragon, which should be a ton of fun.
That's a different game mode, right? That's not Warhammer?
No, so it is 40k. It uses the core rules and then makes some slight modifications to make sure that they don't break in boarding actions.
Things like they could do that in 10th edition, but
indirect doesn't exist, fly doesn't exist.
That makes sense.
You can't move. Your movement characteristic is capped at 9.
Oh, this sounds so great. Just all the things that just say no seraphim. That's all I'm really looking for right now.
And also just like the detachments are really fun. Like everything about it is just a super fun, like compact way to play the game. And the scenarios are really fun. The multiplayer ones are especially wild. where there's some where it's just like, yeah, it's a free for all with 4 players on the map. By the way, you two may have deployed right next to each other, but he has to go get that guy, and you have to go get the other guy. You two can't interact with each other, or you'll both lose.
I love that. I love that. That's some
Yeah.
silly stuff.
There's some very silly and very fun stuff in there, so I highly recommend that people go check it out. The update to boarding action came out a couple weeks ago, I think. But the big change that they made is that all of the rules for boarding action are in a single softcover book. So
That's smart.
all of your army detachments, all of your army rules, they do tweak some of the data sheets, like Deathwing Knights lose Inner Circle, Gilliman loses his Revive. They're balanced choices to make things less unfun for people. But yeah, notably, the Lion does not lose anything.
What's he got to lose, Jeremy?
Fight first.
When the bar
Oh,
is
I should
in
have said
hell
that, shouldn't I?
already, when the bar is in hell, it's hard to lose anything else.
We'll see.
It's fine. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. We have a set that was put together by one of the store employees. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. And hopefully it takes off, because I found that our Thursday night game nights were a little bit quieter. And I think a large part of that is it's just really hard to fit in a game these days in the evening. But yeah, that's what I'm up to. Yeah,
Fuck
what
you,
have you
Innes.
been doing?
You guys are the other kind of nerds to me. I've not been playing computer games. It's been nice. What have I been doing? I've been doing a bunch of content. So I went on the Ascension Day podcast with Gabe from the Ascension Day podcast to talk about my GSC event. I also did a bonus show with StatCheck for the GSC event win, which was awesome. So you can check that out on the Ascension Day, I think, podcast feed, and on our YouTube channel. It's some clickbait title about a 7-0. It's been getting really good feedback, so I will continue to do them, because I am essentially like, you imagine like a hamster on a wheel, but like positive feedback is the carrot that I'm running towards. The only thing that fuels me. So 100% that we'll be doing some more of that. I'll be getting in on tune for Champs Cup. And then working a bunch and tuning up a commander deck for bringing over to Champs Cup, because Dan said he was going to bring one down as well. So that's a plan at the moment. So that's the kind of nerd that we're doing. I needed another hobby. I really did.
I won't lie. The saddest part about not going to Champs Cup, aside from not seeing you guys, is I now have 4 precons in this, and I was going to bring them with me because I knew you were going to bring precons along. Because I was like, oh man, I found the Eldrazi precon that I wanted, and I wanted to play it against innocent person.
We could do some. That's what we could do on in the StatCheck Discord. We can do some webcam commander games.
Oh, definitely. That sounds hilarious and terrible and great. That sounds like the most scuffed version of playing Magic ever. I love it.
I think we should 100%. Does that mean I'll have EDH for LGT? Yes, I'll bring a couple of decks to LGT with me as well. Generally assume that if I'm traveling for a kit tournament, I brought at least one deck with me now, because all of my friends got into it with me. So yeah, that's a fair assumption. I'm also going to do some baking this weekend. I've not done any baking since before WTC, so I'm looking forward to doing some, because it's been a while. Other than that, not a ton. I didn't have an event this weekend, which is a rarity. We were looking at the stats. I think I've done 18 events so far this year. It's September, which is a fair few. And then
it's more than every 2 weeks.
It is more than every 2 weeks. Yeah, cramming in like 2 into a week occasionally does help with like War Masters and things like that. But yes, I also don't have one this weekend, which is nice. I'm taking a break before I do back-to-back Dallas and London.
No pressure.
You'll be fine.
No pressure. So we've got a lot of prep on our plates. I've been doing a bunch of reps, a bunch of practice for that. Just putting some stuff on the table, getting a feel for some different stuff, kind of trying to figure out how to attack the metagame from a different direction, figuring out if I want to play GSC, if I want to roll the dice with that, or if I want to switch over to something else, or just stick with the Deathwing Knights.
Go win
UKTC
LGT with GSC.
UKTC boards drive me nuts. I truly despise some of the layouts where you're just like, there is a 57-inch no man's land between me and you, and all the objectives are in it. How do I do anything here? And so far the answer's been like, I played a game with Deathwing Knights today where the game plan was, if I roll a 6 on the advance, I can get a 9-inch charge. because that was the only way to cross the no man's land in Burden of Trust. And I'm like, well, I'm getting 2 points for my home objective. I've got to go out there, and out there is scary. Somehow all 3 Deathwing Knight squads hit their charges that turn, which was nice. One was out of ingress. It was like a 5 into a 7, a 6 into a 6, and then an ingress charge, which was guaranteed. So there was like sketchy, but got there. It was interesting. So yeah, not really not loving the idea of playing on UKTC boards, which is because all of the prep games I do tend to be on WTC games, just because that's what most of the events in Scotland play on. That's what like our local RTTs are on. So people want to play on that. And then I go to playing a UKTC board, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why like Dark Angels aren't winning anything in the UK right now, because they're playing on this. And you probably want to play like not Lenin's build on this terrain, which is not super pleasant. It's definitely been interesting. So yeah, that's the deck, and I will confirm. I built up a Calamorph deck, which is the Gene Star Cult commander from the Tyranid deck. That is the commander that I built because that sounds like good fun. People are talking about it in chat right now. I am going to be Alveo. I would love to play Judge's Tower. That sounds like great fun because I've seen people play that before. But yeah, that's all I got. Let's roll into stats. I suppose that's what the show is about, ostensibly. So
I guess it's in our title or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hate it.
we should
The
check
stats aren't really that interesting from a stats perspective this week. It is mostly more of the same, although there are like a few things that are kind of interesting to call out, I suppose.
Deathwatch is gone.
Deathwatch is gone. Imperial agents are now Deathwatch. I guess. I don't know.
I
don't know.
was like, oh, there were no Deathwatch players. Oh, right.
I mean, it wouldn't have been that weird, let's be honest, if there had been
No,
only
but I was wondering, it's like,
0 to
oh,
1
I wonder,
Deathwatch
like, was it
players
just a
in
quiet
week.
weekend? Was there no like one brave person? Like, oh no, they just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, there will be some more fully updated stats uploaded to the dashboard in a minute. These are still, I think, missing a couple French events, but that's okay. You guys will get the picture regardless of the situation, so I don't think you'll care that much.
Well, that tells me that the situation is probably not great based on your description.
It's not great, but
More of
it's
the
more
same
of the
last couple
same.
weeks.
So Drukhari are the top ranked faction by win rate. They had 15 players, made up 2.4% of the meta, had a 59.4% win rate. They didn't win anything. They got a top 4 and 4 top 10s for a 1 for overrep, which means everything is fine there. Grey Knights were the second best faction with 31 players, 4.9% of the meta, 58.8% win rate, and also no event wins, but 5 top 4s, 7 top 10s, and a 2.38. Then we have Space Wolves in third by win rate, continuing the trend of no event wins, but a 58.6% win rate, no event wins, 2 top 4s, 6 top 10s, and a 1.97 for overrep. And then Gene Stealer Colts in fourth with a 54.8% win rate, no event wins, no top 4s, 2 top 10s, and a 0 for overrep because of it.
Let's go.
This is why win rate is...
Whoops.
This is why sorting by win rate is always a little funny to me, because occasionally something like this is going to fucking happen where having a win rate does not equate to wins, because that's not...
To be fair, there were only 8 GSC players this weekend, so...
True. And usually we don't even count factions with less than 10 players over the weekend, but you know what? We're going to do it this week just because. And then Astra Militarum are the best performing faction of the weekend by most metrics, with 26 players, a 4.1% meta representation, a 54.3% win rate, 2 event wins, both of which were their top 4s, and 2 of those were their 5 top 10s for a 1.13 overrep. They won the most events for the weekend. The other event winners were Blood Angels, who won an event, Thousand Sons, who won an event, Sisters, who won an event. That is not currently in our stats. Necrons won an event, Dark Angels won an event, Chaos Space Marines won an event, Tyranids, Tau, Custodes, Leagues of Votan. Custodes and Leagues, I believe, are their first GT-sized wins of this slate so far. So their first GT wins of Pariah. And then at the very bottom, we have our RIP for Deathwatch, who have a 0 across every category. We're gonna put out that RIP for Deathwatch now, as they are now Imperial agents. The actual worst performing faction of the weekend, though, was Space Marines. 18 players, 2.8% of the meta, 38% win rate. They did get 2 top 4s and 2 top 10s for a 1.64 for overrep. I think this is kind of the lowest we've really seen just Codex Space Marines be. Everybody's kind of dispersed themselves to a non-core Space Marine faction.
All the Deathwatch players are gone.
It's true. Or Space Marines players have learned that you don't have to be painted as a Dark Angels player to play Dark Angels. You can just be like Francois from Canada and have slightly teal Dark Angels or slightly teal Blood Angels.
Francois has 4 Space Marine armies. That's not the same thing.
5. But he always plays the
Deathwatch
teal
don't count
ones
anymore.
now.
Deathwatch aren't a Space Marine army.
His Deathwatch are the teal.
He
never did. I don't think he did unique Deathwatch. I know he has Iron Hands, Dark Angels, Ultramarines, White Scars.
I don't know. I've only seen him play teal Space Marine armies, to be fair.
He pivoted to just making that his Marine army after painting
he was
4 Marine
smart
armies
after
COVID.
It took him 5 armies to figure it out.
Which is honestly the best way to do it. That's how you should do it. If you're going to play Space Marines, just pick a color scheme you like, incorporate all of the nonsense into it so that you can always play whatever. And that way you can join the hamster wheel that is the Space Marine Army model release schedule.
That's right. They keep releasing all the new stuff being terrible right now, so it's not too bad. But
it's true. Orcs are second to last, 20 players, 3.2% of the meta, a 39.5% win rate, no event wins, 1 top 4, 1 top 10, and a 0.74 for overrep. They are one of 2 factions that have not won a GT-sized event so far during Pariah. Above them is Chaos Demons, 5.2% of the meta, 33 players, a 44% win rate, 1 top 4, 5 top 10s, and a 0.45 for overrep. Rounding out the bottom 5 are Chaos Knights at a 3.5% meta representation, a 44.6% win rate, 1 top 4, 3 top 10s for a 0.67, and then Imperial Agents. 2 players, 0.3% of the meta, a 45.8% win rate, and no placements to speak of.
You know what? I'm proud of them. Well done, guys.
They are now the 3rd faction technically without any GT wins during Pride, but they've only existed in play for like a weekend, so I'm not really going to hold it against them at this point. The other faction without any GT wins is Imperial Knights, who still haven't managed a GT win. But at this point in Pariah, we are just down to Imperial Knights and Orcs not having won a GT-sized or larger event since
I think we should
Custodes.
And I think it's their fault. Imperial
we should hold.
Get your fucking finger out.
I think it's the challenge is painting like the 500 billion independent little character models that you have to paint essentially to get that army on the ground.
Your army is terrible because you are not putting the effort in. Try harder.
Fair. I'll get all of the Imperial Agents players that I know right on that.
Come on, Sai. What are you doing?
I saw Lennon posting a list. John Lennon could just do it. Go win.
Lennon still put them dead last behind Drakari and GSC.
You know what? That doesn't mean anything. He could still... Okay, Tausi says he's going to fix that Imperial Knights win record this weekend, and I'm going to hold him to that.
Yeah, Alex, it's far too high. If you could just knock it down a bit for us.
So, wow. Innes went the opposite direction. I was going to say, Tausi, what are you going to put on the line for this GT win that you're going to say is going to happen?
Just because we're sidetracking, tell Alex what you told me in the chat immediately before we started this about microwaving a tea.
Oh, I microwaved my tea. I don't know. I'll tell him that. I don't care. Cheers. But also, that's it for stats, really. I mean, we're at a point in Pariah where things are pretty stable for the most part. We talked about this a little bit last week where we have a very top-heavy kind of... Not as bad as we've had in previous metas, but the top of it is... basically Sisters, Drukari, Chaos Space Marines, Thousand Suns, all with more than 7, and then World Eaters with 7. And then Sisters has 16, which is more than any, or 17, technically, more than any of the other factions. So we've kind of gotten to a point where we know what's wrong with the meta, and we just have to wait for GW to kind of fix those few pieces. The joke is, James Workshop, that I do in fact have a kettle. It is behind me right there. It is in every shot, and I'll tell the story a different day. But Yeah, I mean, we know what's wrong. We have to wait for a slate to fix it. Points will. I don't know if points are going to fix sisters aside from making sisters look like custodies. You get 3 models. That's it, sisters players. Nothing else. Your triumph now costs 400 points. Congratulations.
As it should be. You'd still play the Triumph at 300 points, you cowards. You know it.
I said 400, but
You'd still
300.
play
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I think I
at
posted on Twitter yesterday.
400
300, you could
points.
probably still justify it.
Yeah. I think people would still play Magnus at 700, so
I mean,
don't
what
know
else in
about
that army's worth it?
who cares? It doesn't matter. You'd still play Magnus.
It's true. It's always funny to get messages from Alex being mad about the kettle, because I just got a DM from Alex being mad about the kettle. Yes. So yeah, stats are boring. Everything's boring. Wake me up when this meta's over and we have something
Oh,
new to
wait.
talk about.
It's incredible how good the like balance update and schedule and all that is, and then like the mission packs come out and just fucking upend everything every time. It's so frustrating.
Like, I don't even think this meta is like particularly bad in some ways, but it's just we've gotten closer to balance, but it takes so long for them to like adjust things to balance it to where it's good again, where all the factions are in like an equivalent spot. Then they'll upend it again, and then we'll be in a bad place again. And that's the nature of 40k, right? It's the cyclicity of army power, but sometimes the balance time frame does make things feel a little bad when you're
It's not
looking
even the
at
balance time frame, right? Like if they just hadn't if they had just done like new orders, you can use it a few times and tuned up a few of the secondaries, and that had been what we changed in Pariah Nexus, we'd have been fine. But they threw everything out, right? Like the secret mission change, all of the fixed secondaries being just gone, removing an entire playstyle from the game effectively, right? It was too much, like too much at once for a game that was still like it wasn't like we were in a stable position at the end of Leviathan, right? Like we were all like we need changes, and then they happened, but like the wrong way.
I think the hit to fixed is fine.
I don't think it is. When's the last time you saw someone play fixed, right? Like you can't
I
print
kind of
an
like
entire
that
play
though. I
pack.
didn't like when you could just play fixed and say, "I'm going to score 37." What are you going to do?
Well, sure, but like they're understandably deployed outperformers was too powerful, right? But the fact that there is no way to play a fixed game plan now, there just isn't one, right? Like you're gonna get 25 points, and then tactical is easier. So they pushed one better, one weaker, and then there's nothing in the gulf in the middle now, right? And it's just not that
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I would say like they've really leaned into making tactical just not an option. They're like, you should trust the heart of the cards and just be okay with it. And unfortunately, there are situations where it would feel better that if you could just play fixed and like actually have a reasonable game plan for it. It also does close off the design space a little bit if you can never design an army to play fixed
Exactly.
at all.
Fixed feels like it's a thing that's just there to punish you for trying to play Orcs or Horde GSC. Like it genuinely does, right? Like what else is it there for? It's there for Hypercrypt if it really doesn't want to have to play primary.
Yeah. Or if you're playing into 7 greater on demons.
I mean, even there, is it that good? Like you're just telling your opponent, hey, this is the exact telegraphed game plan I have. You can play around it so incredibly easily.
No, I'm saying I'm just going to kill you and score.
Sure, but yeah, and I mean, as Alex says, recover assets being a fixed option was not the answer, right? Making easier
No,
homers
that is a fixed option was a mistake from the beginning.
Yeah, but
there's probably a better balance to be found, but it's also one of these things where every time that fixed is good, it tends to be too good.
I didn't think fixed was particularly too good with the changes to lone operatives, like, you know, the changeling and stuff like that getting hit for demons, it really didn't feel like fixed was that powerful. Like, it was a good option. And I think specifically if you included the OC0 action change.
Yeah.
Like, because we never saw deploy teleport homers without that change, right? If you had to commit real units.
But it affects what? Tyranids and then Chaos Armies?
Sure, but Tyranids and Chaos Armies were the problem with that, right? Yeah. What else was really abusing fixed?
I would say Grey Knights, but that didn't actually change because the score
Grey
on that
Knights,
is
that's
the
not
same.
changed.
Fixed
Like
marked for death.
Hypercrypt?
No, I think marked for death is perfectly fine the way it is.
Fixed capture on the outpost. Let's stop being cowards.
Marked for
Fixed
recycling.
capture on the outpost. I don't know. I think they could probably rework like Storm to be a viable fixed option.
I mean, Storm is fine? Question mark. Like it's weird that it caps at 16. I don't know, man. It's difficult to
Maybe
just
make
be
it
like
scoreable turn 1 if you go first.
There-
Sorry, if make it scoreable turn 1 if you were playing fixed is what I meant.
yeah, but I mean that's just another like buff to going second, right? In a pack that really doesn't need buffs to going
Well,
second.
no, because you can just control a new objective.
Well, that requires your opponent to hold no objectives, and if they didn't deploy on their home objective, it's not like they're playing around your overwhelming force draw, Jeremy.
I mean, I guess the other option
I've
is
seen
you
that
just
happen where I was like, "You sure you don't want to send that?" No, you might kill it. One.
No, dude, it's if you're playing fixed, Jeremy, you don't need to play around it. That's what.
I like breaking in this. It's fun.
maybe GW is just weaning us off of fixed and is trying to get us all just over and just to pick tactical and be done with it. They don't want to balance
what
it
they've
anymore
done.
on fixed.
The fact that you're like, oh, I'm playing
right now, you
Azrael
have
and I'm
the
going to play
illusion of
pure
a choice,
Yep.
Yeah, like Lennon's
and also
Azrael list
it gets
just
to
plays
make
tactical.
GSC and Orc players sad, which makes me happy.
Certain variants.
I feel like
imagine
I
being
feel
upset if your opponent draws Call the Horde. Sorry, Nathan, you were saying.
No, I was going to say I feel like Orc players are sad enough already.
Fair, but we could fix them in other ways.
Give Megan up
True.
for it.
I don't think Call the Horde is keeping Orcs in check right now.
God, it would be really nice if it was keeping a Curse Cultist in check.
Curse Cultist should just be max unit size of 8 anyways.
That's what I said. Stealing my thoughts.
I mean, I'm agreeing with your thoughts. I
know,
give you
I'm
full
joking.
credit on that idea
I'm
because I think that,
I know. I
look,
think
if Custodians can get hit with the no, you can't take units of 10
10?
Shield Guard anymore, then you could do that to a Curse Cultist too.
Could you imagine pulling Call the Horde? Your opponent's got 10 shield cards. You're just like, oh no.
It happened actually at one point at when I was judging Tacoma. T-Son's player was running 10 Terminators, and his opponent drew Call the Horde and went, "Oh yeah, can't score," and went to discard, and the T-Son's player went, "No, I have 10 Terminators. They're 30 wounds," and the opponent just kind of looked at that and went, "Fine."
10 chosen inside a Rhino is another personal favorite for that one. Like,
Yeah.
you coming?
What are some other fun ones?
Mark for death against any army with a backfield is just miserable.
Yes, I'm more thinking of like Cull, where you pick it and you go, it says Cull the Horde, not Cull the Elites. I mean, 10 Grey Knight Terminators is probably a perfect example of that as well. Or Paladins. Yeah, beats it. 10 GK Terminator with Sigil. Good luck.
No, thank you.
To be fair, Cull could just be a CP for you anyways, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's usually fun to just redraw it. What are some interesting Call the Horde units? Like, there aren't a lot of, like, I guess...
Big Brick of Sword Brethren?
10 Sword Brethren, yeah, I was going to say.
10 Sword Brethren and a Redeemer, let's go.
If the Triumph just had 6 more goddamn wounds. Give Triumph 6 more wounds and take our invulnerable save down to a 5-up. I'll be okay with that.
That's an interesting idea that Lewis Bollington has in the chat. Why not have a middle ground available where between fixed and tactical, where you can pick one fixed for the game and one new tactical every turn, but you are not allowed to use new orders?
I think that ends up with the other problem where it's just trivial to do that at that point, where you're just like, you take one that's an almost guarantee. Because right now it feels like when you want fixed, it's because there's one that's good and there just isn't a second one. Like, you want to play Assassination against an army that's aggressive with characters. You want to play Call the Horde, but there's not a good
okay, so you
second.
get that 20, but you're only drawing 5 cards then.
Yeah, but I think that
and 5 cards out of the deck of 16 is actually very likely that you end up with like 2 duds.
Yeah, maybe. I think that would probably be fine. I think you could maybe have
interesting
like
to be worth an
new orders on
experiment
that one still, but
like play like a random evening with a bunch of buddies and be like, hey, what happens if we do this?
You should go back to 3 secondaries and they would cap at 15 again. Like, it was so much better playing 3 secondaries. I missed the 9th edition mission format the more I played 10th. The three fixed secondaries. I think it was good.
I don't know.
I liked it better, I think, with more retrospect.
I don't miss to the last banners.
No,
and
that wasn't a thing for like the last year and a half of the edition, right?
It still wasn't great.
10 BT Terminators with Tannhauser's bones. Yeah.
Oh no, not with the ancient. With the chaplain. So they also have a 4 up against mortals.
Yeah. 20 Sword Brethren is another not Sword Brethren, Primaris Crusade is another oof moment sometimes.
Yeah, especially in Righteous, they're just annoying to kill. Yeah, yes, going triple sister secondaries every game was riveting gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, faction secondaries were a mistake. I think we all knew that, but
so the thing is, if you eliminate faction secondaries, was it actually that good?
I think it was fine. I spent a lot of time playing Tyranids, didn't have faction secondaries.
Yeah, but if you can't do actions with spore mines, how does it feel?
You couldn't do actions with spore mines last edition. That was like one of their things. They didn't count towards point scoring.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you also couldn't count them for like kill and whatnot.
Exactly.
Oh man, it's been so long since I thought about a 9th edition spore mine.
I just remember piles of them behind
coming in squads of 3 and doing decent wounds on a 5-up.
I remember auto winning against Knights players when they couldn't move.
I remember using the flat 8 advanced strat on them.
I remember at the Chicago Open, I just put a bunch, measured carefully how far away they needed to be from the knight so that the knight couldn't move at all during his movement phase, and trapped a Knights player in his own deployment zone for 5 turns. That was fun.
That sounds about right. I won't give spoilers because the game's just out, but I had a Space Marine 2 op where there were 3 of us playing co-op. 2 people left the spawn room and instantly died to a cloud of spore mines that had spawned outside of the starting room, and we were just like, what is this, 9th edition all over again?
They're really hard to see if you're not looking for them carefully because they're just like little
green glow. But if you turn a corner and run into them, you just die.
Yeah. They mix in pretty well with the rest of the awesome effects of the game, though.
Pain Celestine does raise a good point. There is one thing I do miss from 9th, and that was some of the limitations on which, special characters that could be taken.
Dude, it's so bizarre to me that I can play a Gene Circle list that has 3 Calibors in it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what? These were epic heroes last edition.
They were epic heroes at the beginning of the edition, weren't they?
No.
They weren't?
Not this edition.
Oh, okay.
I think the Patriarch was because he couldn't have enhancements, but now he's just
okay.
Yeah, I think he's the only one. But yeah, like being able to have 3 Calibors, like
the Patriarch changed. That was the one.
Which one, sorry?
The Patriarch was an epic hero, and
the Patriarch was. I think he's now no longer an epic hero, but still 1 per army. I actually don't know. I barely read that.
Run 3. You can also put him in transports now, which you couldn't before.
Which is nice. Daddy can ride.
Yeah, 3 Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knights and 3 Grandmasters on foot. Never again.
3 different detachments, baby. Once they had to change that over.
Yeah, now that we don't have detachments anymore, that's not something you can really do, but it would be interesting.
Yeah, remembering the utter stretch that was all of the Grey Knight detachments, where they're like, we need to come up with sub-factions for this army. Sword bearers and bringers of victory. God, they were awful.
Some armies just shouldn't try to have sub-factions in them.
No, I mean, they never did it for Death Guard. It was like Death Guard was the only one that never got them, right? So
they had the Plague Company.
Oh no, they got them they got them in the yeah, they did get them eventually. They didn't get them in their 8th book. God, right. Memory lane is a dark place. I'm very happy that we're
at least we're not talking about 7th or 5th edition again. That's all I'm saying. I enjoy it.
The one thing that's worth saying is that whenever people are reminiscing, no one ever reminisces about 6th. So
does 6th edition even exist?
6th was the worst. It was
so much worse than players.
What was 6th edition the one edition I keep hearing about where Grey Knight players were the only players and nobody else got to play?
Maybe sixth was the one that like only lasted 2 years because it was so terrible that everybody went, "Please just get us out of this."
So, since we're going down memory lane, what in the last like couple editions do you think we could bring back that wouldn't break the game but may actually improve it from like a quality of life perspective?
So yeah, I really want to say the psychic phase, but I also know that that's probably not true.
I don't think the psychic phase, but I think a little bit more meaning to psychic stuff would be nice rather than just he's a Tzeentch demon prince, so he gets a gun, a better gun.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that like psychic is now just shooting attacks and some terrible buffs, but
Or Grey
we
Knight
seen-
librarians.
Yeah.
yeah,
I was
I
gonna
don't
say,
think I
have we
wanna
seen
live
a
in a world
psychic
where
army? But
every
then I was like, no, Tyranids came out, so yes.
yeah. 6 thoughts for 18 months didn't even make 2 years.
Actually, Pizza Bagels is a really good one. No moving after Deep Strike.
That is 100% thing that should come back. Every time anything moves after coming from reserve, I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Get some help.
Interaction
no
with psychic abilities would be interesting. Like, all those things that on a 2-up this happens, have some kind of like, I don't know,
Deny the witch mechanic. Yeah.
an unbind mechanic or something.
Yeah. I think one thing I think actually would probably be helpful is no charge turn 1 after infiltrate or scout. That's a thing from like 5th edition, but
Or what about just no moving after it if you are set up with infiltrators?
yeah, just can't move turn 1. Like honestly, like no move, no shoot. Like I think turn 1 should go back to just being a staging turn for everyone, but like that's probably never going to happen at this
I guess
point.
the question is, are we really dealing with that many armies that do that?
No, but I think it's created such a polarization of the way that we have to build tables now that it just, because things are so like heavily turn 1 weighted, right? Like if you gave a Tau army the ability to just turn 1, it would just blah 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 blah. So you have to play a table that's not an option on, and then obviously for enfranchised people of the people who are playing the amount that we do, there is very real amount of we never have to encounter that problem. But for new people who are just like, oh, I just bought my Tau army and my Space Marines, let's play them against each other on like our table tennis table with some books, right? And they mark out the area. It's just like it's never going to be fun for those people, right? Whereas if turn 1 is a little bit more,
I don't know,
like,
bring back night fighting rules for turn 1.
Yeah, night fighting, moving positioning, but then we have search, destroy, deployment, right? Like, what's night fighting going to do?
You can still deploy in such a way that it's less of an issue. But no, you're not wrong on that.
Yeah.
I do
you
love that
remember the,
we've
prepare
all
position strategy?
sidestepped the easiest one, which is that we should put points on war gear.
No, I don't like that.
I think it's fine. I think everybody
In
can
general,
that.
I don't think it actually matters.
Do you remember the like utter whinge we
Think
had
it
when we
could.
took away like spending CP on changing your warlord traits and relics before the game? Because that was a thing we
I
used
don't.
to do, like in
I
edition.
Really like the point system for enhancements.
Yeah, I think it's great. But when we had like the system that it was, which was like you would have your detachment with 12 CP or whatever, because you brought 2 battalions in a patrol, and you'd be like, all right, I have 12 CP to spend pre-game, and you'd go like, all right, at the start of the game, you would sit there and you would go, all right, let me just like get onto battle scribe and change all my enhancements.
I'm gonna spend 5 minutes rewriting my list because I'm allowed to do that.
I'm gonna have chapter master this game, and this guy's gonna have this, and it was such a faff, right? And then people got rid of it, and people complained for 6 months, and then it went away, and I've never heard anyone complain about it since. And the same thing will happen with war gear. It's noisy at the moment because people still remember it. It'll go away.
I think that they're trending in the right direction, where units that can take significantly different war gear just split them out because they can play different roles.
Yeah, I think the implementation was half baked, right? Like having crisis suits with flamers be the same points as crisis suits with sibs was obviously never going to be suitable into the system. But now that like acolytes with demo charges and acolytes with demo charges are different data sheets, it feels like you can point them appropriately.
You can also give them different abilities.
Yeah, I will say one of the problems with it has just been that index with that has been ridiculous. Like you had Death Company, who, why would you ever take Death Company at the points values they're at with anything other than an Inferno Pistol and a Power Fist? Because those two are the best options, clearly. And instead now the new Death Company data sheet is better because now they can adjust points around a properly war gear equipped unit instead. And if
but to be honest, the unit just ends up being costed with that. So like we're talking for competitive, we're always going to min max. If you had that option, you would never take Death Company without them.
Well, if I ask the question, of the codex books, right, of every army with a codex, can you think of a data sheet that's significantly a problem with that? Like, there are going to be some things like you're never going to run a tactical squad that doesn't have a las cannon and a plasma gun,
But
right?
that's like 2 individual
Yeah,
upgrades on a
exactly,
10-man
right.
squad.
But I can't think of a data sheet that's like
You'll
a
also
problem
never
that
run
isn't from an
tacticals,
index.
period.
Sure. But no, you're always going to run the auxiliary grenade launcher and a power fist on your as a sergeant, right?
Yeah.
But I can't think of a data sheet from codexes that's really a problem with that, and it might just be the ones not coming to mind. There might be one or two, but
And
like
most
minions is the only
like, I
one that
think
I
of
can
like
really.
assault intercessors with jump packs, but then it's like it's a plasma
It's a
pistol
power
difference.
fist and a plasma
It's
pistol. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, like
The
they're
Orc
priced
Commander's
around
killed
the
because of
sergeant
war gear
traveling
cost?
force.
No, it wasn't killed because of war gear cost. It was killed because it's locked to a 10-man.
Yeah.
There are some units, like I will say, there are some units that could
Codex isn't out.
stand to have some of it cracked apart a little bit. Some of the Lehman Russ tanks probably don't need to have their multi-meltas priced in, but that data sheet also is fine at the same time.
Codex
for the
also isn't
points
out,
cost
so
that it is.
that
And the
might
codex
be
isn't
a
out.
codex.
Yeah. And so I don't know if they want to do here's your sponson versus sponsorless option, but maybe they will.
I mean, I don't think aggressor flamers do suck. I think they just don't have enough shots. They probably need to be D6+3 instead of D6+2. But I think that's a balance problem more than
D6+1?
Yeah, the D6+1, whereas the other one is D6 and then +3 twin linked.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that
it
you
just
could
feels a
easily
little
bump the
annoying.
flamers up to D6+3 and not break the game because they used to have 2 D6.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you could D6+2, right, and start there and see if that's fine, and you could ramp them up. Chaos Terminators and Legionnaires is maybe a decent argument just because those, but like, I don't even think that's necessarily like really one. I could see it, but that's maybe like the best example, and I don't think it's that good an example. Like I'm thinking like there's nothing in GSC, there's nothing in AdMech really. Like they're just the units that have like that level of crazy war gear just don't exist. I guess Sword Brethren, but again that's an index.
But that's also just like one of each. It's not like
Exactly. Like, but
and I think that if you did have to
choose
pay,
run
you
them all.
would just take the regular weapons because they would still be really efficient with their ability.
Heavy bolt or retributors, yeah. The fact that the heavy bolt and the multi melta take up the same slot is still a little weird, but like I think that's just a
You just
I
make
don't know. I feel like that you could justify a lot of different options in Havocs, right? Like the fact that heavy bolters suck on infantry platforms is not like an argument against. It's just an argument that the heavy bolters probably should be better on infantry platforms. And casting it just shouldn't have 3 of them, or should be point appropriate.
I mean, they only have 1 chain cannon in the box.
Yeah,
he's got to start box locking more units, perhaps.
It's true. More units that you box lock, like Retributor, you should only be able to take 2 multi-meltas.
yeah. I mean, and then there's things like I don't know why you would ever take wraith blades with swords over wraith blades with axes, but that's not like that's a war gear imbalance option where you're like there are 2 options, one of them is worse than the other. Whereas what we're talking about with like Death Company is that there is a thing that you can do with them that is wildly different from the base, and they're like completely different, right? You could imagine a world where the swords were slightly better and that they would be a compelling option. I can't imagine a world where you would opt to take a chainsword and bolt pistol over a like on the same data sheet, right? They're not side grades of each other that are different. One is just better, right? There are not as many of those now. There are a few, and I think GW still has the thing where they treat +1 attack and +1 damage as equivalent, right? Where you have like the sword or the sword or the spear, where one's +1 damage, one's +1 attack, and they're like these are equivalent options, and you're like, are they? Fuck. But I think again that's like you could probably make them
you just gotta
+2
look
attacks,
at
and you would be fairly close to it, right? Deathwing Knights when they drop.
Although Deathwing Knights now, it's a meaningful difference, but I wouldn't say that either of those should be costed differently.
No, I think that's fine, right? But I think there's examples of them getting the power balance between 2 options slightly wrong, but that's a lot more adjustable. Where then like, hey, this Deathwing unit can be an existential damage threat, or it can be a slightly different JPI squad, right? Those are just different things.
Yeah,
and I think the
and I
codexes
think
have
it's also one of
generally
these things where, like, of the codexes we've seen so far, there haven't really been a lot of, like, the Death Company as an example, a unit that like has a flat like upgrade 10 models in the unit or don't upgrade them at all, and you pay the same cost.
Yeah, like you could choose to run a Devastator Marine squad with no guns, right? Like you could choose to do that, but it's so far beyond the pale of like what that unit is reasonably expecting itself to be.
Yeah, and if you even look at the cost on Devastators, they're costed differently between 5 and 10 but on the number of models because the first 5 get special weapons or heavy weapons and the second 5 don't.
I guess another Eldar option is just D cannons versus vibro cannons, but again, that's an index
That's
option
an index,
thing.
right? Those will
Yeah.
just be different data sheets when the book comes out, right? Like 100%. That's like I am.
That would
100%
actually
on
make a lot
board
of
that it
sense if
was
they split those
purely-
up, because then you can say these are very different guns.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board that this was poorly implemented in the indexes, but I really feel like the codexes have done a good job. Like maybe exception of like the Marines territories don't have upgrades, so like whatever, right? But outside of that, like it feels like most of them. I think you could maybe justify like the Fleshborer Hive Terran effect being a different data sheet to the Rupture Cannon. That might be like one of the few outrageous ones. But again, that's a warrior balance option, right? The Rupture Cannon could just be better. It's not like a strict upgrade, right? It's a side grade that one of them is weaker, right? That's fine. And yeah, for anybody who missed it, if you're choosing between +1 damage and +1 attack on a data sheet, generally you should take +1 damage, especially if you're damage 1. It represents doubling damage against a wide variety of targets, whereas +1 attack is usually somewhere in the region of 30 to 50% increase, which is almost always going to be worse. There are some situations where there are units that do significantly less, where it is compelling to do like +1 attack because their job is to kill chaff. That is a slightly separate argument, but generally you're going to go for more attacks. Yeah, I think Fleshborer T-Fexes maybe come to mind as like the one that, yeah, maybe the T-Fex gun is just terrible. But I think when the Rupture Cannon was, if they hadn't buffed the Rupture Cannon, I think you could have just made the entire thing cheaper. But they buffed the Rupture Cannon instead of making the Renifix cheaper, which I think is a good decision. They just didn't also buff the Asses Spray and the Fleshborer at the same time.
Yep. I think there's like a few things like that where the codexes have generally got it right, is where when they've started to box lock options or lock options to specific data sheets, that the balance for war gear costs being incorporated haven't been as dramatic. I think that's generally
I was mentioning Termagant base guns. I don't think that there was a point cost difference depending on which of the base guns you gave the Termagants. It was just the special weapons you picked from.
There has been a little bit. Anthony,
Hey, Anthony,
Anthony, I've always been a power level apologist. It's fine.
So
don't worry about it.
And I don't think it was done from an accessibility perspective or anything like that. I think it was just done because it's simpler.
Yep.
I mostly just don't care.
Quick, someone rapid ingress Anthony.
I think that the main thing is that I just don't care either. Like the fine tuning of the last 7 points of my list was never a thing I particularly like. It was a thing I did because you had to, but it was never a thing that I was massively engaged with. Anthony is a big, I'll play 1975 if it makes my list better, right? So I think
he just pretended he had 5 plasma pistols or whatever it was.
Anthony, just join the call if you're gonna chat with us and talk shit in the chat. Just join the StreamYard. It is.
I don't want to deal with him right now. I'm in a good headspace.
Oh my gosh. Also 10th edition known for its less lethality and fewer rerolls and things.
Okay,
yes,
we were talking about things we wanted to bring in from older editions. That was the start of this topic of conversation.
Yeah, someone had to go and suggest that we should undo power level.
I mean, I did.
There was
I'm not entirely convinced. I'm not convinced that it's wrong for indexes based on the design approach. And it probably would have improved the balance with indexes to have incorporated war gear costs and then changed it when you brought in the codexes instead.
I think that here's one of my favorite. Just box lock things in the first place and rip the Band-Aid off then.
That's true.
Sure.
I have
also just like I'm of a similar opinion of why did you give us an index that had a whole bunch of things that got legends 2 months into the edition when your codex came out?
Yeah, that was weird as well. Right. Here's a fun trivia question for you. What's the only points upgrade in the game right now? I'll give chat a second. There is one. There's 1 points upgrade in the game.
That is a model or isn't a model?
1 points upgrade. One thing that is this unit costs this, and you can add thing for plus points. That isn't just double unit size.
I mean,
there you go. Chat's got it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't count because that's a model.
It does. It's 1 Shadow Spectre Exarch for 20 points.
Yeah, between 5 and 6 models. That's the same thing as saying if I have 4
Shadow Spectre Exarch plus 20 points. It does not say additional model. It's a points upgrade.
I was like thinking through it. I was like,
I knew what he was going with this too, and I was just like, no, that's not a valid example.
Look,
it does say that on the data sheet.
Instantly, that means that it was the correct question.
Yeah, and Davos, the Black Templar melted vehicle upgrade doesn't count because Black Templars don't have a choice now. They have to
take it. It's a different data sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Does the Tide Wall have an upgrade? That doesn't sound right.
Probably. But again, I think it's another model. So again, bad example.
Look, how would anybody know, frankly?
I don't think I've ever
Tell
seen
me the
a
last
tide
time you've seen a
wall.
tide wall on the table.
Never.
I have played against the Tide Wall. I played against the Tide Wall in 8th edition once. I think I lost that game. I was
It's like playing against the Fortress of Redemption.
I was playing like Oops All Assassins. It was great. What else do I miss from older editions? There was like, what were the generic stratagems last edition? There was one that I thought you remember really liking. I realized that's not a very.
Actually, here are 2 changes I wish they would go about. Get rid of grenades and just give them back to the data sheets. I'm tired of a CP being 3 mortal wounds.
Yes, it's too high a rate. It was D3 for additions.
Yeah, make it on a 5-up.
Yeah, 5-up would be fine, or make it 3 dice. Frankly,
3 dice on a 4-up. Yeah, that's basically a D3.
You could just change it to
or
what
honestly,
it is in
just
like
make it
what.
D3. Make it D3 mortal wounds. Frankly,
So it's a
Just make it
guaranteed 1.
Yeah, guaranteed 1. Make it D3.
That's actually maybe a little bit. It also makes it less swingy, but also the cap is basically
Lower.
where the current average is.
Somebody said facings, and I hate them with all of my soul.
No. That's like asking for templates to come back.
Please don't do that to me, guys. I think
every time I play against the Horde army, I do think I
open
would
about
love
templates.
you could take a page out of the Age of Sigmar book where they are like roll a d3 and on a 2-up do that many mortal wounds.
Which
So you
means
only
1-2 does nothing, 3-4 does 2, 5-6 does 3.
Yeah, you could take some of the stuff and just do that instead. They've codified the language for it. You could just make grenade into that. So you always do 2 or 3 mortal wounds for a CP, but that's like
one of the
sometimes
things that
it still fails.
Would actually be a really nice quality of life change would be if tank shock, since it's now tied to toughness, was usable by monsters.
Yes, also agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have
that's also just as a Tyranid player, please.
Well, I mean, Tyranids don't, and this is also why I brought the grenades up, because Tyranids don't have access to either of those. I mean, what was it, flesh borers that were grenades before? I can't remember the actual one. Oh, not those. Tyranid player, help me here.
Flesh hooks on the
flesh hooks.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, give units that have flesh hooks the grenades keyword because it'd be cool.
I think, yeah, that's probably the fact that grenades is like a balance lever as well, right? Like in the sense that it's based on whether the models have it or not. Like just make it a generic stratagem that like any infantry or mounted can use or something like that as well. Like I think that would be a reasonable way to approach it, right? Rather than having it be tied to, like, because it's weird that some things can use it and some things can't, right? Like it just represents, you know, like why do Necrons not have any grenades in their entire army? Did they never invent the concept of like thrown explosives? Right? Like that doesn't seem real.
I will
Why
also
does a
never
Biovore
understand.
not? Why can a Biovore not just like lob a spore mine at you and call that a grenade, right?
Or why can't a Carnifex tank shock you when it is like the example of a battering ram used 90% of the time in things? Or the Carnifex throwing over a Rhino on the charge is like an example of a tank shock, basically.
Yeah, no,
Come on,
obviously the
guys.
Rhino is driving over the Carnifex. That's
obviously. Yeah, that's the Rhino does more damage to that Carnifex.
No, by far my favorite is that you just put a Land Raider in front of a Tyranid army and says this thing has 2 stratagems that you don't have.
Look, you can do that with yeah, no, stop it. Don't do that. You can also do it to Necrons, but
yeah, but it's funner to do it to Tyranids.
Yeah, like
then you're going to fail your shadow in the warp test and not be able to do either of them.
The thing with Nins is that it was 1 CP do 6 mortal wounds, right? There was almost
no
and
it was never there was no in between. It was not like
they printed. It was trampling charge in the Codex, which was D3 on a 2-up, flat 3 on a 6, and then if you were a big enough thing, it was like D3 plus 3 on a 6, and it was almost as good. Like it was not as good, but it was very nearly as good, and it was better than current tank shock, and current tank shock's still good. Like, yeah.
I like tank shock being based on toughness. I don't think total wounds would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
especially since knights would just get out of hand. Then I'm sorry, you're not rolling 25 dice at me.
Tank shock, total toughness. You succeed on your armor save, but it caps at 3 mortal wounds.
Apparently, custodians don't have grenades.
Custodians have almost no access to grenades. No.
Oh, that's
They don't
weird.
need it. They punch you to death.
They've just traded in all their Tanglefoot grenades for
Tank
punch
shot
guns.
based on the charge roll. Yeah, I could accept that as well.
You get your
Wait,
toughness plus
tank-
your charge roll.
No, so you roll dice equal to your toughness. You succeed based on like how far your charge was, right? Like you go, between 0 and
Because you're
5
ramping it up and
yeah,
like
0 and 6 inches, it's a 6 up.
7 to 9 inches, it's a
7
5
to
up.
9,
And
it's a 5 up, and then 10 plus is a 4, based on the actual distance you moved. Hell yeah, I could see that. That'd be cool.
This sounds so silly. I won't
Yeah, it's
lie.
great. I want it. And then grenades, obviously, the closer you are, the more grenade dice you get to throw. I think.
but if you're too close on ones, you take damage.
I think grenade. If we're gonna leave grenade at 6 dice, it should cap at the number of. It should be based on the number of models in the throwing squad as well. If you have 5 guys, you throw 5 dice. If you have 6 guys, you throw 6 dice. Caps at 6. But if you have 1 guy, he throws 1 dice.
That would stop characters like the Wayleaper
Lothar
from
Wayleaper.
throwing 5 mortal wounds and stuff for fun.
I mean, this hurts Eldar, so I'm all for it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's fair. I would accept it.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
works
or-
in their 15-inch charge rolls? Well,
Yeah,
you
they
can't
get
declare outside
plus
of
1 for
12,
every inch after 12.
So the most
yeah.
you can move is 12.
They
You know
can
what?
move
Bring
more than
back
12,
bring
right?
back
'Cause you can
hazardous
declare-
tests.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're both yammering over each other. I was going to say bring back hazard tests for deep striking units.
So speaking of templates, I do have to share this story because this story was very funny. Apparently at the Goonhammer Open Horse Heresy event in the UK this weekend, there was an incident with a deep strike mishap.
An incident, you say?
Someone is going to have to correct me on this because I don't know how Heresy works, but I'm pretty sure it's based on 7th for the most part. In 7th, when you mishapped with the deep strike, did your opponent choose where they went?
So there were conditions. It was a dice roll. On a 1 or 2, you just died. On a 4 or a 5, your opponent placed you. On a 5 or 6, you went back in reserve. Those were the general.
Okay,
It might
so-
have been slightly different on that. And I don't know if it's the same in Heresy.
I mean, and it
but
may have adjusted
basically,
as well because Heresy is 7th but different. But one of the things, so apparently, someone was playing with a Titan, big old blast template, against an army who deep striked their entire army, and the entire army mishapped when it came in.
Oh.
And so the Titan player placed it all clumped up within range and line of sight of the Titan, and on his turn went boom.
That'll do it.
They don't have D weapons though, but they do still have instant death, I think, in Heresy. So it will just instant death all your units.
Pretty sure every
back-
time is instant death for your average deep striking army.
Bring back
Yeah.
challenges. That was a fun mechanic.
Ooh, I do like
Epic
that.
challenges
idea,
would be very cool.
I mean,
Like,
Just like sergeants fighting sergeants, and
well, then,
Um,
yeah, that'd be fun.
someone was saying there's a mechanic in the new. I think it's the new Chaos Warriors book in Old World where you pick one of your unit sergeants and your opponent picks one of theirs and they fight to the death for turn 1.
That's awesome.
I like that. That reminds me of the old stratagem for like Space Wolves and Dark Angels, where you
The
could like
Lion
have
of
them.
Mention that.
Yeah.
You could have
The
them
Lion and the
wrestle and deal damage to each other.
Yep. And if they survived, they both got better.
That stuff's fun.
And you could use it on your own models. So if you wanted to, you could ally in a Space Wolf character into your Dark Angels army and just have them duel at the beginning of the game.
Specifically, they have to be 1 wound sergeants. It's 2 1 wound sergeants dueling each other. So it's like it can't be like, my Chaos Knight's gonna fight your archer. No, it's like it's like my Chaos Warrior's gonna fight your like free guild dude. He's probably gonna win, but it's also like you have to go first. You can't choose not to. It's just if you win, you go first for the Chaos player. So it's like it's kind of cool.
That's
You have to
fun.
be like a specific sub faction to do it.
You have to do it by
Um,
wound count. So if you want to have your 3 wound Deathwing Knight Sergeant, they have to fight an equivalent 3 wound Sergeant on the other side.
4 wounds on a Deathwing Knight Sergeant. Yeah, there's just
sorry,
not
4.
one. You're just like you're gonna fight the Paragon Sergeant who's in Val's squad. Godspeed.
Oh,
Congratulations, you are now fighting an equally good unit. Sorry.
except Paragons are T7 now, right?
Yeah, they are. They would probably win.
I
feel like
think
that fight
I think the
probably
Night
loses to
Master
the
wins
Deathwing.
that still. Because the
Night Master
Paragon
averages 5 hits, averages slightly less than 2 damage from dev wounds, and then slightly less than 1 damage. It probably like who swings first, right? Like it's probably going to take
Well,
2 or
because
3
and the
activations.
thing is that the sister does like 2 wounds in activation.
Yeah, and
She
so
only
does
has
the death
4
wound.
attacks. She's wounding on 3s. She's hitting on 3s.
Yeah, but she's full wound reroll, full hit and wound rerolls, right? Because she's in Vol Squad.
I don't know.
Lion of the Wolf was 8th edition for anybody who's asking.
Oh,
because
was
it was
it?
when you could.
Man, I
mix
thought
and
it was
match
9th
all
for
that
some
stuff.
reason.
No, that was 8th. It was
Ah.
in the Dark Angels Codex. It wasn't in the Space Wolves Codex.
I've been playing for so long.
It just
No,
kind of
just
starts
kidding.
blending
It's
together.
all the same edition.
I just know
Every
because-
time I learn a new rule, I can feel an electromancy or a geokinesis power slide out my brain from 7th
So
edition.
the problem for me is it's not replacing rules, it's replacing important science knowledge. It's like, congratulations, new rule, you're replacing your knowledge of ion optics by
That's what
ion
Rule's for.
optics.
To be fair, I don't remember anything from uni, so that's maybe like where I started.
I am the living, breathing example of why you have to remember some stuff like calculus.
Oh.
Things
So
like-
Custom
I love the current
detachments. That's
detachment
an
system.
interesting one.
I like the custom
Mm.
detachment system. I think it's the best version that we've seen of this. And I do not.
Can you do build a detachment where you get to choose like a army rule and then you get to pick 6 stratagems?
You get to that
would
would be
be
a
cool.
fun like solo tournament, right? You could pick. You get 1 enhancement, 1 warlord trait, and 1 strat from each of your 6 strats, but you can't double up until you take it from a detachment.
Someone
again, right?
actually no. Someone did a chaos like a chaos tournament version of this
Yep.
where they randomed them all.
Yes.
Ooh.
And it was you have 100 different detachment rules, and it fixes the keywords so that they work. But then you could end up being like your bringers of flame, but then you have a hypercrypt stratagem for 3-inch deep strike.
No, thank you. No.
I was-
Shoot.
I was actually
Except
thinking about
you're playing-
sweeping advance. We bring back sweeping advance.
Or your unit just dies
So-
in fails combat.
Yeah, if you fail combat, you run your movement speed away. Let's say so, like 7 inches for a unit, and then your opponent has to roll 2d6, and if they roll the 7, they catch up to the unit and kill them all.
And also, does that mean we also bring back who won the combat based on the number of total failed saves?
I still tell my opponent, so that's +2 combat res. Just to see if they'll be like, huh?
I was also going to say it's great for you could also have it as like a stratagem where if somebody falls out of combat with you, you could try to chase them down and kill them all.
Man,
I mean,
That'd
bring
be
back
fun.
cut them down.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
bring back cut them down, make
Imagine
it
good
easier to
cut them
score.
down, but good. Grenade, cut them down
Yeah.
should have the grenade text. That's what we're missing. Grenade should have the cut them down text.
I mean, you should just have a cut them down that forces desperates.
Ooh, there you go. That would be fine.
Poor Warp Talons losing their awesome role.
I think that we would be perfectly happy if Warp Talons got their old rule back.
Look, can I get rid of that on the Rock Grinder? The Rock Grinder used to have charge morals. It now has.
I remember
desperate
it
schemes.
now has you can't leave.
It's really funny against exactly Thunderwolves.
Oh, that's cute. You can fall back, shoot, and charge. That's nice.
I've never had a Thunderwolf fail a desperate escape check to a Rock Grinder. Never once.
Look, he at least has to make the decision that it might turn out
No.
badly.
It's like 15 for 15 on 3-up passes, man. It's real rough. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really miss.
I do love the name of that Pizza Pickles came up with. It's just Warhammer ability draft, like the
Oh,
old
I
Dota
missed
2
turn
one.
6.
You know what? I missed turn 6, but not the random nature of it.
No. Last edition's turn 6 was fine. Just 6 turns. Why can't we have 6
Was
turns
it
again?
just 6 turns?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the best part of this, though, is was that 9th edition or was that?
Well, 'cause I
8th
remember in 8
edition?
there was a roll.
Yeah.
And yeah, in 7th and 8th there was
And
a
you could
roll. It
technically have
was
7
4 up,
rounds in
3
8, if
up,
I remember
4 up.
correctly,
It was
too.
3 up, 4 up for 6th and 7th. ITC fixed it to 6th.
That's what I'm thinking of, because the ITC format said no, and I think ETC also locked it at 6.
ETC never locked it. ETC was
Oh,
always
okay.
random.
I only played one ETC event, so
Yeah, ETC was always random game length because I remember winning 20-0 based on it going to 6 turns or 7 turns and then not. Okay, 9th edition did not have a turn 6. Okay. I missed turn 6. I feel like the 4K would be good.
Tableaus, everything died in turn 5 by 90. How was there at turn 6? Yes, I remember that there wasn't. It was definitely 5 turns because all of the fixed secondaries were like
for Stranglehold.
Yeah, 15 points for Stranglehold. Don't miss that.
No.
But bringing back a 6 without there being random, the problem is it makes the game longer.
Yeah, but for me personally, that would be like just value for money, right?
Well, yeah, because you never actually play more than 40 minutes of Warhammer in a game.
Exactly. It was definitely only 7 in 6th, 7th, in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I don't think there was ever a turn 8. That might have been in 4th or earlier, but not from my remembrance.
I do think, actually, one of the things that they could do, and this is going to be very controversial or very well loved by this, I think that they could shrink the game back down again. Like they said they were doing at the start of 9th.
Go back to 17 or 1850 points first.
No, like just increase the cost on everything.
Oh,
keep it at 2,000 because 2,000 is a nice even number. But like everyone plays with like 80% or 75% of what they're playing with right now. So like between 15 and 1,600 points of current. Also known as what happened when the Sisters
Code
came out.
It just restarts the creep again, though, right? Because all that happens is that'll happen eventually, and it'll reset again. I think we should go back to 6x4s. Is that a controversial statement?
That's pretty controversial because that requires us to replace all of our mats. So no.
I know it is now, but like, God, I wish we'd never moved off the 6x4s. Especially when you play against an elder player that feels like they're still playing on one, and you're like, "How are you still so far away from me? I've been running at you for 4 turns."
Yeah, let's not. I like the 60x44.
I just want all the Harlequin rolls back. That's what I want.
Bobby brings up. What about the phase out for Necrons?
Was that where if you lost 10, you were down to 10% of your army, the rest of your
25% of your Necron units, and Catan
and monoliths didn't count.
Yeah, can you imagine playing Canoptic Court with that rule?
They would have an exception.
I have killed
the Canoptic Court. The Canoptic Court would have the exception.
A unit of warriors, and they sit in your backfield. You better hope your opponent doesn't have artillery.
Josh should still a table, do you?
I mean,
fair. All right, let's transition.
I'm enjoying the reminiscery.
This has been a fun band.
It's fine.
Now, the thing that I'm worried about is that someone is going to end up listening to this and come up with the worst possible idea of what we've suggested, and it shows up in the next edition.
Obviously, we should bring back Invis. Yeah.
How about allegiance tables? The big tables of allies you could take?
Come the apocalypse.
No. Yeah.
We should bring back drop pod assault and gladius and
bring back formations in general is what you're asking for?
Gladius free transport.
That's just what detachments are, right? Formations with less steps.
Yeah, but you don't get free stuff for taking a formation.
Maybe you should. Maybe they should just every detachment comes with a free thing.
Maybe that's how you balance basic Marines. You play the basic bitch Marine detachment, and it just ends up
you get free rhinos.
You don't take any named characters, but you get 4 free impulsors.
Dude, every day, all day until the sun died.
You get 4 free tanks up to a certain point amount, up to 4 free tanks up to a certain point. Just get that. That's free. There you go.
Yeah.
I wonder how bad the Marine win rate would still be if they did that.
Until the last light and stars die, I will have 4 free impulsors.
And don't worry, Carolyn Turing. I saw your question and I put it in the start.
We're just not taking questions right just now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Make Wraith Knights jump monsters creatures. They're going to actually bring back stomps.
Ooh, bring back stomps. Make them templates with. Bring back D weapons. Bring back D strength weapons.
No.
Things just die.
No, not that.
Yeah. No, we're actually, there. No. I'm doing it.
Bring back instant death.
Bring back vortex grenades.
Like the reality is, I shoot a Marine with a melt-a-gun. He should just die.
Yeah,
he does just die.
He does.
Not always. And that's my problem.
You roll a 1. Sometimes you do roll the 1.
No, and sometimes he's in cover and he gets a 6-up save.
Well, that was always the thing. He would have gotten a 4-up save in 7th edition the last time instant death existed. So chill.
Yeah, but you didn't get
cover used to just give you an invulnerable save. So.
That is true. The apothecary is working his ass off behind, like stitching a new arm on him, like undoing all that melted damage to his armor and shit like that. Somehow
that guy is protected because in 8th edition, the father of the future fathered the future, and now all Marines are just a bit more durable because he fathered them.
What?
That was the upgrade. They gave you the 5-up Field of Pain aura if you were an Iron Hands.
Yeah.
So you had Feros and the Father of the Future, and now all Marines are more durable because of good old Father.
Well, yeah, I mean, Black Templars just believe in their vows more.
You don't want to disappoint. You don't want Dad to be disappointed in you.
Exactly. All right. I suppose I should do the plugs.
Yes, instant death, just for Tomek real quick, was if something had the strength twice your toughness, you just died. It doesn't matter how many wounds you had, unless you had Eternal Warrior.
Yeah, it was after saves. It wasn't like, it was just if you took the damage with Eternal Warrior, you died, right? Like it was just,
unless you had Eternal Warrior.
Without Eternal Warrior, you just died. So if it was strength 8, you were toughness 4, you failed your save, you still got your save, but like you would just die. But this was an edition where Terminators had 1 wound, so like, and armor saves were all or nothing.
Actually, before we jump to things, what about bringing back the old AP system?
I liked all or nothing saves, but it kind of
and also just takes the math out. You have a 4-up save, it's AP 4, you don't have a save. Done.
Yeah, I think it's.
I don't like how we're becoming heresy apologists on this show, and it makes
this isn't a heresy apologist. This is the new AP system has been broken for 3 editions now, and I would like to see the old one back.
Look, dude, I don't understand. Like, okay, I have one last one. How do we feel a year into the edition about 3-up saves don't get cover against AP0?
I think that's fine. I think that's actually a really good change. Because it was maddening to run into someone where, like, my Marines has a 2-up and cover. Her.
Can you repeat that, Jeremy?
with her, please. Okay. Why then does it work on 2-up saves for AP1?
Because they already have a 2-up save.
I hate it so much. I feel like cover shouldn't be allowed to improve you past the 3-up save, just ever.
I actually don't disagree with you. I think you should never be able to improve past a 3-up save with cover.
Agreed.
Which is how most people read that change.
That ruin should not make a Terminator more durable. That ruin is a ruin. A Terminator is a walking tank.
Yeah, AP1 with 2-up saves bugs me so much, right? Like the 3-up 0 thing, I think is a great change. I just wish it applied to Land Raiders and Vindicators as well.
I don't disagree with you.
Just ignore cover.
Just don't have to work with the mechanics in the game, Jeremy. Just ignore the mechanics, Jeremy.
To be fair, I think cover is also just too prevalent right now.
True.
Again, I think that's partly an issue of the board requirement, though, because turn 1 has the potential to be so lethal. You have to put on such dense boards. That means the cover is everywhere.
You could also just use Fog of War every game.
Yeah, everything should have loan up 12 on turn 1, then 18 on turn 2.
Great. All right.
The Vindicator Assassin, the best model in the game in that edition.
Cover shouldn't affect your save. It should make you harder to hit, says Steven.
Bring back Dense. Oh, I miss Dense.
At least then you had something other than
better
on the
Dense
table. You
than
had
heavy
some
cover.
Forests and stuff like that. You almost made in his choke on his water.
Heavy cover is still the group chat icon for the backstage. Every time I see it, I remember, oh yeah, that's heavy cover.
Is it? Damn,
AOC should just give you cover as well. That's probably a good change. That would be a good change.
It is.
Yeah, armor, contempt, and cover shouldn't stack. Like they made it so cover was just a flat +1 and couldn't be made any better and couldn't stack with anything else that added to your save. And then AOC was like, but what if we instead just change the AP value of the thing coming in and then it does work?
My favorite, I do like the fact that AOC doesn't work a bunch of the time because it reduces the gun that you're at to AP0 and now you're in cover, so you don't benefit. But that's my favorite one, where you're like, I'm going to AOC against the heavy board. You're like, okay, you're in cover, have a 3-up so save. I'm going to go from 3-up to 3-up.
Congratulations.
What about not shooting through allied units? Hey, I've got a story for you. Boarding action does that. Boarding action, line of sight is base to base, and your own base is block.
So it's worth remembering for everybody. StatCheck is officially a Horus Heresy, Old World, and boarding action.
We're not.
This show now. Okay,
stop. Get out of here.
Until they nerf Morvenval. Until they nerf Morvenval.
Until the Triumph is 300 points.
Until
that's the new tagline for this. That's the new. Yeah, that was the old version of this rephrase. Until light is changed.
Just add Votan beam weapons. Like once they bring out the beam plane head, that's.
I mean, the good news is that at least all Votan beam weapons just have the conversion rule now.
Look, Australia's tabletop wargaming network. Notice how, even in this situation, no one plays Middle Earth.
It's because it's a good game. No one plays good games these days.
No, don't start with that. No, get out of here.
Middle Earth is the PlayStation 5 of war games.
What?
It's got no
Fuck
games,
off
dude.
with that. PlayStation 5 has lots of good games. Fuck off with that. Get out of
Those
here.
are not available on other
instead of
platforms,
playing
though.
any of them.
And it's just because you can't afford one on your allowance doesn't mean that it's not good.
I haven't owned a console since the Wii. Don't worry about it.
That does fit your generation quite well. Good job.
All right, plugs. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying the show and you're in a position to support us a little bit more, you can check out patreon.com/statcheck. That gets you access to the wonderful, wonderful backstage community where you can interact with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that like Nathan for some reason. That's one common thread is that they'll all
I don't
talk to
understand
Nathan.
why I'm the target of this. Innes randomly in the middle of last night, it's like, Nathan, look at this. Chicago food sucks.
That's patreon.com/statcheck. We will be launching, and we get to announce this here. We are going to be doing the new a new Vibe Check League in about 2 weeks after LGT. So if you are interested in joining onto that, the rules pack should be going up sometime in the next week or so. So check out the Vibe Check channel in Patreon for that. It's a new TTS league, and it will be singles, I believe, because team events are hard and difficult to run. You can check out all the other shows on the network at youtube.com/statcheck, and you can catch us live at 11 p.m. GMT every Tuesday here, youtube.com/statcheck. You can find the other shows like End of the Matrix, XM1, Champions of 40k, and Take All Comers, as well as all of our additional content like stat reps from the Take All Comers guys and my tournament reports, and hopefully many more things to come. You can check out our sponsors, Red Dragon, J15 Games, Saltar Games, and Whale and Yutani in the description. Red Dragon is your #1 supplier for stuff in Ottawa. Go and check them out at red-dragon.ca. You can get a code for 20% off through our Patreon. You can check out Saltar Games and J15 Games on Etsy for your tokens, widgets, terrain, and many other things needs. And you can check out Whale and Yutani for terrain from the WTC supplier specifically. What else do I need to plug? Coaching? Is that it?
And all the other shows.
I already did that like 2 seconds ago when I did the YouTube bit and I spoke about all the other shows.
No. Keep going, Innes. You're off your train of thought. You don't have to verify it.
No, you lost me. Yeah. If you're interested in getting support with growing as a 40k player or prepping for a tournament or anything in between, or you just really want to do well in Vibe Check League, check out stat-check.com/coaching or drop us an email at coaching@stat-check.com. You can speak to either myself, Jeremy, Typhus, Pumbaa, Tyler, or Nicholas Olsen-Johnson about getting better at 40k. Drop us a message. We would love to help you out. It is a busy time of year for tournaments, so we understand. Come have a chat. You can check out the other shows on the network that I'm pretty sure I already plugged on youtube.com/statcheck too, and on the podcast feeds. And if you're on the podcast feed, go and remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube video because it helps us out with getting discoverability and all the things. Because I think last week's episode had like 3 things on it, and I'm pretty sure I remember to say it. So please comment, otherwise I forget. I stop existing in your mind for a week between episodes, and you should make sure that that's not happening. Remember me more.
Our audience apparently lacks object permanence.
Well, I certainly do. So, look, I cease to exist in my own mind if I've not been validated in the last hour. So, like, if you could go and comment on my YouTube video with nice things, that would be really appreciated.
Questions, and
we're going to move on to show questions. As always, there are 3 ways to get your show question answered. 1 is to be a patron and to ask it in the show questions thread. 2 is to send us a super chat, as a bunch of people have been doing, and thank you very much to those guys who've been doing that. And lastly, to ask a really good question that we decided is interesting enough to answer from the chat. Nathan, take it away. I'm going to go bury my head in like vague amounts of self-preservation for 2 seconds.
Also, as per usual, damn it, the Vibe Check League will be prize supported from Red Dragon. So if you win the league, you get probably a couple $100 in store credit. We'll figure out an exact amount and we'll put it into the rule packet. First question is
raffle prizes. So it'll be, first, second, third, we'll get some cash, store credit at the Dragon. And then we usually do 3 or 4 draws for people that finish their games.
Yep. So there will be prizes. We promise.
We should see anybody who doesn't actually play their games for a change.
We can do that. All right, on the show, various members of the network have mentioned the notes that they keep for games played, both in practice and tournaments. What is the format of these notes, and what are the key elements you look for or want to record as you are thinking about making notes about the game?
For me, I don't really take notes as much as I record all my games in tabletop battles to go back and look at them afterwards. What I'll do at the end of a weekend of events is I'll go back and I'll run through my memory of each of the games because, well, I'll do it at the end of every game, but also at the end of the weekend because I want to see if there was a pattern throughout the weekend, mistakes that I was consistently making, things that I was noticing about the army where I was like, I really wish I had this tech piece on my list in like 4 of my 5 games. I wish that I had brought Watchers in the Dark in none of my games, so I don't care that I forgot about them.
Innes, do you take notes about your games?
So I don't usually do them at the time. What I kind of do, like after an event, I'll drop into like the notes app on my phone and just kind of jot down some things. So like I have the ones that I wrote out for the ones, and a lot of it is just like because I'm doing the episode at the moment. A lot of it's just like keywords for the discussion of like things that I remember that I should like remember to talk about like when I'm going through it for content now. So a lot of it is just kind of keynotes to like jog my own memory about it. If I play a game on stream, I tend to go through it in a lot more depth, and I'm actually going to be I'm going to try and do a bit of bonus content about like how to go through a stream game and like watch it and learn a bunch from it. That's a thing that I want to try to do sometime in the next couple of weeks, probably after LGT. But if I play a game on stream, I actually tend to review it. But that's really most of excuse me, I'm so sorry. Most of where I'm at with reviewing my games right now is kind of general memory. If when I lose a game, I tend to do a lot more, but in wins, it tends to be fairly like, okay, I kind of know the talking points I have and review them for myself. But not a lot of like physical writing down. I tend to be a lot of like run through it in my head, talk to myself like a a crazy person rather than like writing stuff down. But I do also log all my games in TTBA, right? Like I have outside of WTC because WTC is a pain in the ass to record because physical score sheets. I have like all the games I've ever played from like this edition just like in my app.
Man, I should probably start doing that. Taking notes or storing all the games in my phone instead of like having my opponent do it, because it would be good to go back through those things. Probably, maybe some improvement as a
I
player.
reset my app for the new edition because I just didn't feel the need to keep all my ninth games. But I have all my ninth games in a spreadsheet that I took all the data from. But the app now just like I can just look at this edition's data. And I don't have like TTS games and stuff like that on my phone because I'm not digitizing those. But like most of the practice games I played are on there.
Makes sense.
TTS is
Grant,
fake anyways.
That's true. Yeah.
Grant has the next question, which is: how has Innes found reception/success of his solo show, and what are your thoughts on filling a cool niche of 40K content that hasn't been done well like this yet?
Guys, it's so awesome. Thank you so much. There were like 3,500 views on the most recent episode for the GSC, and like 30 something comments that I responded to basically all of. It's been fantastic. Like seeing some people that I really respect in the 40K scene being like, hey, I hadn't thought about 40K in that context, or like you opened my eyes on something that I wasn't thinking about, or people being like, hey, this is some of the best 40K review content I've ever seen from like people I really respect has been incredible and fills me with joy and makes me want to keep doing this. So yeah, it's been great. And frankly, like I riffed the content format from other games. Like I think that's one of the strong competitive advantages we have in 40K is that there are other people in other spaces doing similar things. Not identical, but enough that you can look at it and go, I can learn from this. And I think that's one of the things that I've been trying to do quite actively is not just look in the 40K sphere, but look at people who are, who are being successful and that I respect in other spaces and kind of going, why does this format work? How can I make it work? While also just like doing stuff that I enjoy, which has been really, really helpful. I come from a league background, so I did a bit of watch on like what do like review like what do people do when they're doing like coaching games for that, or like when they're doing like analysis streams and things like that, and how does that go? Okay, I looked at like some Magic the Gathering tournament reports because I've been getting into that recently, right? What do people talk about in those? What makes a successful one? What makes one that I was compelled to watch? What makes one that I wasn't? And then tried to take some of the ideas from that, and I'm still growing into it. I'm hoping that I will continue to make these better and better as I go. Like some of the feedback for the first one was great, and I implemented deployment pictures and being more active in taking those. So obviously if there's any feedback on them, feel free to fire it over my way, either in Discord, on the YouTube comments, or message me personally. I'm always happy to hear it. I can't promise all of it, but I'll do my best to keep growing that, and hopefully over the course of the next couple of months I can continue to ramp up the like content production, because I want to keep doing those for every tournament I go to, but I also want to fill the weeks that I'm not going to tournaments with other stuff, and that's part of where I'm looking at the moment. And yeah, I did get a great response to the Death Guard 1 a couple years ago, Lord of the Bad Factions. Frankly, some people would say that I already am that. With playing, Tyranids and Dark Angels, and yeah, sometimes, but I can't do it all the time. There has to be a hook for a bad faction for me. I won't play a faction because it's bad. There has to be a compelling, like, interesting thing that you can do with it that like makes me want to play it. Like, I won't play just generic faction Space Marines, right? Like, that's not a thing that I'm interested in because there's nothing in there makes me go, this is a thing that I can attack the metagame from a different perspective with. There's nothing in there that goes, I can do a weird thing that people won't expect. Like, there has to be that for me, and that was like the Death Guard list was, I wonder how far I can push not having units and just having characters. Can I overwhelm somebody with that, and like what's an interesting way to attack that? And I tried it and it worked fairly successfully. The Gene Cell Cults was obviously a fairly tried and true from Eric, that I was like, all right, I think I can live in that, and I think it's actually pretty good. It's not just Eric doing weird stuff. Whereas something like Imperial Knights, like, there isn't like innovation there is data sheets, and I'm not interested in playing data sheets without like expansion.
So what you're saying is you're going to go and you're going to win a GT with Imperial agents.
No, I'm not saying that at all, because I think people will just do that regularly and they won't need my help.
The next question is from Sean. Now that we've had a few months with the pariah version of New Orders, how often are you finding yourself redrawing secondaries? I fear I may be missing cues to use it.
Fairly regularly. It depends. If I'm playing an army that has reliable CP gen like Dark Angels, and I need to be keeping that secondary score high for whatever reason, I will be cycling cards that I can't score almost all the time.
Yeah. As far as like a general truism for this, if you're in a winning position but you don't feel like you can push much more, you should be redrawing more aggressively. You do not need to convert CP into onboard advantage anymore. You don't need defensive abilities. You're less likely to need offensive abilities. But if you don't feel like you're in a situation like, maybe you've used your aggressive units, your opponent's like in a position where they're like slowed down but not stopped, and you don't feel like you can run at them anymore, that's when you should be redrawing aggressively to try to convert your CP into points advantages now, right? Like, you've done the onboard presence, you're in an advantage position, convert that now into points. The other side of that is that if you are, significantly behind and you can't catch up, and you would love to be spending CP but you're not going to win the game, you should be redrawing more aggressively, because you're not going to catch up. Like, even if you table your opponent on the last 3 turns, if you're 60 points behind, you're never going to catch up if you start drawing dead cards. You should be redrawing more aggressively in those situations. And then the other side of things, I think right now, as like a general truism, when you go first right now, the game is about denying secondary. It's not really about denying primary so much. Like, there are exceptions to every rule, but in general, I would assume that if you are going first in Pariah Nexus, your job is to win the game on secondaries. If you are significantly behind while going first, you probably can't deny your opponent primary because of secret missions, unless you're going to table them, in which case, disregard, you're tabling them, you don't need advice. You should probably be redrawing more aggressively and attacking your opponent's secondaries. And if you are in that situation as the player going second, and the game is about you making sure you don't fall behind on secondaries, you can probably reliably score catchback on primary, and you should be less focused on spending your CP to create primary advantage, because you have the ability to catch back up in the late game with secret missions or with just end game scoring. Lean on your secondary play. Those are the kind of the conditions. If you are playing a brawly game where you need every CP to convert advantage because neither of you have figured out who's winning yet, that's when you don't redraw. Yeah, there's also like a weird timings thing. Remember, the New Orders is after you do like battle shocks and things like that, so you do get like a bit of additional information. Like, you can draw your first 2 cards, and then you feel like you do your battle shock, and you're like, oh, I probably can't do established locus with that unit now. Don't forget that you New Orders after that, because New Orders is end of command phase. You do also have to do things like declare Marine Oath of Moment before you do your redraw, so you might just pull something that's like worse because of that. In which case, if you're hard committed because of the thing you put your Oath of Moment on, maybe just don't redraw. Maybe just put the CP in the bank for later. Because it might just be less efficient than it would be otherwise. So a little bit depends on like the timing situations of your army as well.
Yep. No, I've had to remind people fairly regularly that when they're debating drawing a card, it's like, no, see what your battle shock situation is going to be like. And if you're playing against Tyranids, see if they decide to shadows you as well.
Yeah, pick your oaths and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Next question is from Nikki D. We throw Pariah Nexus in the bin and go back to Leviathan. There's one catch. You must accept Chicago deep dish pizza as the only pizza you eat for the rest of your life. Do you accept?
You mean I can't eat pizza for the rest of my life?
Correct.
Yeah, basically,
no.
You give up pizza, then no.
Yeah, I'm not giving up pizza for lasagna. Sorry.
Willow asks, When you draw, recover assets, and sabotage in the same turn, do you feel like turning into a vegetable and returning to the earth forevermore?
Not if it's turn 5 and I'm going second. Woo, Pariah Nexus.
I'm amazed that you have at least 4 units left.
I'm playing GSC, dude. They all came back last turn.
Fair.
Bryn has a question, which is, now that Jeremy is playing Votann again, any new thoughts on the army in Pariah and the current meta?
Army is a ton of fun. Like, I was on T-Suns for the last few months because my team needed it. Being on Votann now reminds me of just how much joy I have shoving that army around the table. And also just, Angry Short Kings is just fun. But in terms of like
really
general Pariah
being a
play,
Scout army right now.
they're fast. They have cheap units that they can use for scoring. They're pretty good at secondary denial as well as at primary denial. Bikes just bouncing all over the table all game is a hell of a drug. And twice now, the New Orders question earlier, twice now in practice games, I've redrawn a card on turn 2 because I had 7 CP. And I kind of went, I'm not getting that card.
What am I doing with these CP?
What am I doing with 7 CP? And then I find myself with 0 at the end of the turn because I just...
It's like, I just grenaded and tank shocked and +2 AP'd and I did sustained hits and
story time. I had a land raider that I was trying to kill. And you know what Votann really doesn't like killing? 2-up save with AOC. I was alive with 2 wounds left after my entire army shot it. And so I grenaded it, had 1 wound left, and then charged it with a Sagittar that needed a 9, CP rerolled the failed charge, and then tank shocked it to kill it.
Nice.
Now, the important moment about that is it also meant that I was able to then tag the Sword Brethren that fell out with the champion that also was making the charge, and Sword Brethren disappeared to the Einhir. So,
it's also kind of brutal in that situation because the Sword Brethren ability is start a fight phase, right? Which means they don't get their +1 damage.
No, they do because it died to tank shock.
Oh, it died to tank shock. Sorry. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out that timing, and he was like, "No, it started fight phase." I was like, "But it." Oh, right, no, I killed you.
Yeah,
in the
no, tank
phase.
shock. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm 100% sure that's the exact face you made as well. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, you're right."
Yeah, no, you're right. Damn it.
Oh, I thought it was clever.
The next one is from Chris.
Yeah, just in general, they're a solid army. I wouldn't say that they're like a top tier army, but especially in teams play, they're a very stable army.
And honestly, Scout is so one of the best ways to generate qualitative advantage while going first in Pariah Nexus. My win rate going first since I played Scout armies is significantly higher than my win rate going
especially
second.
When you have, especially since the army now has an infiltrators unit that for some reason is 80 points.
Yeah. My stats right now for Pariah Nexus are because I've mostly been playing Scout armies, I'm now a 91.2% go first win rate and a 72.7% go second win rate. So
that is a good question, actually. Pariah, 85% go first, 80% go second.
Yeah. It's kind of brutal. That go first advantage is super nice with scouting grid runners and bikes and things like that. So that's been good. It's nice to play an army that doesn't just fall apart when it goes first.
Yeah.
Playing Deathwing Knights sometimes feels a little bit like that, where I'm just I don't know what to do when I go first sometimes. It's not like it's
you
bad.
Advance and sit behind buildings. That's what you do.
Yeah, but I'm playing on UKTC boards where I can't advance to a building. They're 14 inches away from me. And that sucks.
All right. Next question is from Chris Polly is, what do you think the best thing for GW to do for Chaos Knights so that big knights are viable? You can only drop points so much. My thoughts are to give them a 4-up invulnerable in shooting instead of a 5-up invulnerable and or a 2-up armor save.
I think the simple answer is a 2-up armor save.
I'd agree with that. I think a 2-up armor save on big knights across the board probably makes them actually viable for the most part, or more viable.
It makes the one with the AOC enhancement very funny.
Yeah.
But you could already run that on a 2-up save big knight. It's still not good because the points.
Yeah, but that big knight is too expensive.
Sure, but
I think that Rampagers or even Lancers become much more interesting in Chaos Knights if they have a 2-up base save.
You have to make War Dogs worse. I don't think you can.
We can do that at the same time. We can make War Dogs have a 4-up base save.
I think you need to make War Dogs one less weapon skill, ballistic skill across the board, and be these guys are squires. They are not good.
No, because they are actually pretty good. I think maybe reduce the toughness.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think I feel like knights are just fundamentally too difficult to balance, and like I know that there's a lot of harp on like Vic VJ and myself and people like that who are like knights should never be good, and part of that is because fundamentally when knights are good, they represent such a different way of approaching the metagame that
That they
they
skew the
are good
meta.
because the metagame is not prepared for them, and then the metagame prepares for them, and even if it has to overcorrect for them, it still gets prepared for them, right? There is just such a capacity to make your army good at killing knights that it doesn't really matter how good they are. There is a ceiling because the second they are good enough that they pass the critical mass where they're worth planning for, people plan for them, and then it doesn't really matter how good knights are. I think what knights need is like a unit that's 50 points or 80 points that isn't an agent's unit and actually synergizes, and like you know like tiny knights, like little diddy dudes that can run about and like do your action monkeys and actually have
Give
relevant
them.
contribution.
So what you're asking for is squires, like actual squires.
Yeah, dude. Like a
For the
knight army
house
should be like
troops.
one big knight, three armigers, and then like a bunch of stuff, right? And it should
Like
be like
secretary
relentless.
hoplites
Yeah,
in
and that big
the
knight should
heresy.
be like unkillable, and it nukes a thing a turn. But honestly, I think if you just gave big knights, like big knights have one weapon that they point click, and it like if it's if it's got two guns, it gets to point at two units and say half of their wounds remove or half their models, and that's it. That's all it does. And if it's if it's a double gun knight, it can point at one thing and go, it's dead. And if it's a melee knight, it can do it in combat, and that's it. And it doesn't roll dice. It just goes remove half that thing or remove that thing, and like from starting strength, right? And you get one of them, and it just does that, and that would be fine. And but and it would be
Always just
unfucking
start getting
killable.
tagged by individual nurglings for the rest of the
Yep.
game.
Sure, man, whatever, right? But like, it's just fundamentally not a playstyle that's ever going to interact well with 40k because you either have too little stuff or too much stuff, and the second that you have too much stuff that people have to start planning for it, that's when 18 Eradicators start showing up again.
All right. The next question's from John, which is if you could peek under the balance hood at GW to see what data they look at to make decisions, what's the one thing you would hope to see?
The dashboard.
Josh,
The dashboard. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to see Josh at his computer at his desk with the dashboard open, taking notes.
That's what I want to see too. I won't lie. The next question's from Pius is what would it take for you guys to start AOS and which armies interest you most, if any? So, funny thing, I today received my TO benefit of a box of Scape and Blight, which I put on my dining room table. And I have a Soul Blight Gravelord's army already sitting there for painting. It's assembled, it's
I
primed.
got my
I just
copy
need
of
to paint
Skaven
it.
Tide from the TO program as well, and
Skaven
have
Tide, there it
built
is.
all the Skaven in it, and then also just basically went to Dan and say, put me down for one of everything in the new Skaven release because these look really cool.
Yep.
I don't know if I'll actually play, but it'll be a fun hobby project.
I'll also say, like, I'm interested in AOS, and it would be a thing that I would play. And I'm currently painting an army for it, and there is a pretty good community in Chicago for Age of Sigmar, which helps.
I
would
fully
totally
expect
take
that I'll
40K.
start playing Spearhead at the Dragon because, like boarding actions, it's a simple, small format that's very well designed.
All my friends would have to stop playing 40k and go and play Sigmar, and then I would follow like a lemming.
I mean, that's very much the case for most of
but
us, I think.
Yeah.
I'm too ingrained in this hobby to have another wargame hobby that absorb my time. I don't like I don't like Sigmar enough to overcome the inertia of being a 40k player. So
That's fair.
I will never, because I don't want the temptation there of doing it. Like I started Legion a little bit because I like the models and I wanted to play a few games with friends, and I've never done an event for it. I would love to; it would be cool, but there's just like the inertia there of being like, I'd have to go and find like a whole new bunch of people, like traveling on, like, no, it's not worth it for me.
Right.
I don't want to start over, frankly.
It's
And
fair.
if I was going to do it, I'd want to do it properly, which would mean starting over.
Frank has the next couple of questions, which is how good do you think the new Eversur Assassin will end up being?
Not as good as the Calidus.
120 points?
Seems fine. Seems like he'll be good. Early predictions for the Codex Blood Angels in singles.
As good as they are right now, probably. I
About
mean, it's
90%
all
as
points
good as they are now.
dependent. They're sitting like middle of the pack for most performances.
I think they'll be a little worse than they are now, and a little more planned for, and that'll be fine. And it'll probably be better for Blood Angels' chance of winning tournaments because people will be planning for them less. You should hope your army is.
And who knows? Maybe Sangard are 35 points.
Yeah, I'll
Man,
play.
if Sangard are 35, if Sangard are 35 points, a lot of things are going to happen.
I'm going to regret everything when that comes true.
Kells has the next question. 25 points per Sangard. Kells has the next question, which is, I'm looking at Innis's NID list for LGT. What are his thoughts about dropping gargoyles and warriors for 2 units of raveners? Or am I making things worse?
You're looking at who? I don't have a NID list for LGT.
Last year's LGT list.
Last year's, I suppose, maybe.
I played Dark Angels last year's LGT and CSM.
Wait.
I don't know.
So I assume you're.
Maybe WTC.
List. The warriors you could definitely drop. The gargoyles, I feel like you could get away with it for double raveners. It would give you decent scoring options. Like, it's nice having a squad of gargoyles though, and the warriors are additional synapse that has a decent amount of melee presence for using the grenade strat off of. Like, it's probably fine. I don't think you're going to make the list like significantly worse. I would probably for singles cut a Moloch and put in like an extra like gun platform, and then like use the points left over from that to like fit in some more scoring after you cut the warriors. That's probably what I would do, because I don't think you need 3 Molochs in singles. They were very much a team specific thing,
but they're fun.
They are really fun. Dropping Molochs on people is great. Doing like 27 mortal wounds in your opponent's turn is fantastic, but you probably don't need all 3.
We're about half, maybe a third of the way through the questions. We've got
That's
Bobby.
Horrifying.
Yeah. How do seasoned veterans of the top tables deal with stress of such challenging matchups? And do you have any tips for new players?
Just do it. Like, the only way to get over the stress of it being your first time at the top table is for it to not be your first time at the top table anymore. You are going to play difficult games. Your opponent is playing a difficult game and is stressing too. You are not unique and you are not alone. Everybody has difficult times playing games. Everybody is stressed. The only thing you can handle is your response to it. Be more aware of your stress levels during those kind of games. Know when you need to step away from the table and just let your opponent, especially if you're like on stream or you've got a judge like at your table, know that you can step away and that it's probably going to be fine. Like, step away, take a break, sit down, listen to some music before the game, like just whatever you got to do to get yourself out of your own head. It is a game the same as any other. Your opponent is going through the same stuff. There is nothing different about this one besides the expectations that you're placing on it. So your job is to manage your stress levels and your expectation, and the only way you can do that is the ways that you know from doing that in every other aspect of your life where you do that.
I will also say you can take some time on your clock and step away for a second and get yourself like a glass of water or something. Like, if you're feeling extra stressed out, you can use some tools to like release some of that stress. And if that means stepping away from the table for a second, step away from the table for a second, click it over to your time, take an extra minute or two, and then come back to your table. Like, you don't have to sit there stressing out about it. You can take an extra little bit of time to like get used to the idea of what you're doing. You have 3 hours. Use some of it to like count 10, take some deep breaths, step away from the table for a second, like get yourself centered, message a friend, get some self-confidence back. But also, Innis is correct. The only way to get used to it is, in fact, by being at it and going through it.
I'd still stress my goddamn mind out every time I'm on stream or at top table. Every single game. I stress out about my round 1 pairing, my round 3 pairing, my round 5 pairing, every single one. I choose to believe that I thrive in the stress and that I'm not like pickling my heart, which I think is probably what's actually happening. But I was watching a thing about this is very, very off topic, but a thing about whales' earwax and cortisol levels, which is a very don't worry about it. But like, you can detect the stress levels from the earwax in a whale, like the rings of a tree. And I choose to believe that if they were to take that out of me, you would be able to tell when I played on top tables, because you would be able to see the stress levels just spike. Yeah, I tried wearing a smartwatch for a bit to see try tracking my heart rate for it, but it wasn't a good enough smartwatch that it just like didn't really work. But I think that would be interesting to see, is like what your how your stress response goes over those games, because it's not fun sometimes. Especially if you've been like energy drinking your way through the tournament, which I'm not saying I've done.
Nikki D has the next question, which is, what barbecue meat and side dish are you most excited for in Texas at Champions Cup?
Brisket.
It's a good one. I don't think Innis is even knowledgeable enough to answer this question yet. He's just going to get some meat put in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm generally a pretty big fan of ribs, but I am open to trying a lot of different things when it comes to meat. I'm gonna try not to be picky. despite being a very picky person.
We'll get you some good meat. And don't worry, it won't be too spicy.
Dan F asks, what is the favorite Green Day song?
Basket
Mine
Case.
is Basket Case is a good one. American Idiot is also a good song. But Basket Case is like a great classic. Like
Holiday / Boulevard of Broken Dreams is also really good.
Burnout's also good.
It's pretty good. I like Jesus Suburbia, but
It's a good.
again,
fine.
it's
a
like,
good one.
but I think my favorite is probably 21 Guns, but I think that's just a very 21 Guns are good riddance, maybe. Probably 21 Guns.
I've got some psychic damage to share with everyone. I was at the office of my new job, and there was one of the employees who was celebrating his birthday and singing along to Simple Plan, a song that came out in 2004. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I was in like the 12th grade when this came out. He was like, yeah, I was in the 1st grade.
I was 8.
He was 7.
I'm going to give you further psychic damage. The first CD that I owned is actually Dookie, which had Basket Case on it, which came out in 1994.
The first CD I ever asked for was the one by the Plain White Tees that has Hey There Delilah on it. So,
just so you know, in 1994, that was the first CD that I owned because we had actually that was also the first
You had that at 7?
Yeah, that was my first CD. We'd gotten tapes before that actually because that was the first CD I ever owned. Because then we got tapes before that. Basically, we had like a pencil. I had a Smashing Pumpkins on tapes before that. All right. Now that we've made everybody feel old, mostly just me, Tomek has 4 questions. The first of which is, what factors influence your decision-making process regarding going aggressive versus going defensive in a particular matchup? Which might be too broad of a question for the purposes of this.
Am I going to win if I do nothing? Are they going to win if I do nothing? If not, and if yes, it's your job to change the game state. You just have to ask the question, is it my job to change the game state right now, or is it my opponent's? That's all you're really looking for.
Do I have to force a response, or am I being forced to respond?
Now, you can choose to be aggressive when you don't have to, and that tends to be dependent on like army matchup. Like, is my army better than theirs? Am I better than them? Which is a very cocky option, but is an excellent one. You can just be like, am I better than them? Can I just push anyway? And you are not always wrong to, but generally it's, am I going to win the game? But do I need to change the game state, or do they need to change the game state? And if they need to change the game state, generally your job is to play defensively. And if you need to change the game state, your job is to play aggressively. That doesn't mean all out aggression on turn 1. Sometimes you roosh on 4, as Liam VSL loves to say. But you must always roosh.
The second question is, go ahead, Jeremy.
Who's the beatdown?
Yeah, go read
who's the beatdown. Yeah, go and read who's the beatdown.
Maybe read one of the updated ones that are a little bit more current, but still a good article. As experienced players with hundreds of reps, do you have some sort of mental template for each faction/mission combination? For example, versus T-Suns on supply drop, I will do XYZ. Or versus Hypercrypt on 51,
but not one I can vocalize.
Yeah, like not a vocalizable one, but definitely like there are some things that I will do the same way against all of these factions on this mission.
I would describe it more as like a mental Venn diagram almost, where I have like things I do on supply drop and things I do against Thousand Suns, and my job is to identify the overlap and do the things that are in the overlap that like support, and then identify the things that are in both, that are in the one circle but not the other, that are doable anyway. Like my goal against Thousand Suns is to like, you know, I know the things I have to do on supply drop are X, Y, and Z, and I know the things I have to do against Thousand Suns are A, B, and C, and then also, you know, like Windings and Jupiter are in both of them, right? And I'm going to do both of them. I'm going to prioritize those things, and then my job is to do the other things as and when they are suitable. But that is kind of like the toolbox that I'm coming to the table with, and then sometimes you got to improvise outside that. But I know what like the priorities are preliminarily based on having a bubble of things to do against Thousand Suns and a bubble of things to do on supply drop, rather than having like a specific like a matrixed grid, right? It's not. I don't have a list of against Space Marines on Burden of Trust. You do blah blah. I have on against Space Marines. You do that on Burden of Trust. You do this. Okay, where do they overlap? Where do they not overlap? Where do I have conflicting information? How do I resolve that? Right. That's more of how it is, and that's a lot more. implicit understanding than like directly. Like I'm not like literally accessing like my mind palace like in Sherlock. That's not really how it works.
The third question
Occasionally I go to
from
the mind
Tomek.
palace, but that's just because I need to clear my head.
Hmm.
I
That's
don't
something you
actually
probably
think
just
about
also
what's going on in there. Just people are like, oh, it's really deep in thought. I was like, no, I just don't want to think about anything for a minute. I'm overwhelmed and overstimulated.
you got to access some of that muscle memory from reps. This is why you do reps in the first place, right? Is to get that muscle memory so that you know what to do. Number 3 is how many turns ahead do you plan, and has there ever been a game where your opponent completely surprised you by doing something you did not anticipate?
Usually at least one, typically 2.
A combination of 0 and 5, I think, is the like unfortunate answer. Like I will go into a game, like I said, with a general understanding of what does a win in this mission look like? How do I steer this game towards that win? Which is like, I spoke about this a bit with my GSC of gaming against Hypercrypt. My win against Hypercrypt is going to involve me capping their primary at 40 and getting 50 myself. How do I steer the game to making that happen? What steps do I need to take across each turn to resolving that? Which is planning 5 turns ahead. But the game-to-game individual turn is a lot of what do I need to have happen this turn, and what positions can I set up for next turn? There is not a lot of like in 2 turns because of this will happen, right? I'm going to start good trading patterns, right? I'm going to do the muscle memory of this is a thing that will result in my opponent bleeding more resources than I do over the course of the next few turns that results in a game win. And then there's a lot of like, which units of this turn are disposable? Let's go and figure out which cards have I drawn, right? That kind of stuff. So there's a lot of 5 and 0. Like you play by the moment, but you kind of, you set down like 3 tracks in a direction. You're like, that way is the win. And then you choose which of the 3 tracks you're going to be on by the turn kind of thing, rather than really going into like, this, then this, then this, then this, right? Like you can't set that far in hand. On the second one, 4K is not really a game that like really leans itself to surprises. A lot of the time, if you didn't anticipate something, it's either them making a really big mistake that you're going to punish, or they are taking an ungodly risk that may or may not pay off.
It's the ungodly risk that makes me worried.
That's the
but it
stressful
doesn't
one.
surprise me. It's just that moment of
I really didn't think they'd go
try
for that. Yeah, like I really didn't think they would try to bank a 9. I did that to Jaunty from the New Zealand team at WC. Like my first Moloch dropped in and battle shocked his monolith, and I was like, "Well, guess what? I'm changing my turn to
kill the monolith.
I think I'm going to try and kill that thing now." It's like I wasn't planning on doing that, but he definitely didn't expect that the first battle shock failure was going to be an all in against his monolith, but it was. So that's definitely like one of the things. Like sometimes there is new information and it happens mid-turn and you just turn on a dime, and sometimes it's I missed something, and if you miss something, like that's not necessarily you not anticipating something, it's you getting something wrong, right? Like I didn't expect my opponent to ingress there. Well, why didn't you expect your opponent to ingress there, right? That's kind of the
I think talking about the planning ahead thing is like you're not planning ahead each of your moves for 5 turns. You're planning for your 5th turn goal of what you want. I think some people picture when they say I've planned ahead is I've got this 3-dimensional chess kind of game in my mind of planning ahead like a chess player, basically, when really you're planning towards your end goal. And then each turn is what you're running with to do that. The next question and the last question from Tomek is, do you currently see the value in repositioning units before the battle now that all the repositioning abilities work the same way?
Most of them are fairly cheap now. So I would probably say yes, if you have access to it and the points are available and it requires very little juggling, it's probably worth it. Because especially in the case where you can't outdrop your opponent, it now gives you the opportunity to outdrop your opponent.
Yep. I think they are better than people give them credit for, and worse than they are. Like they look pretty bad, and they are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as people say they are.
They're not useless.
They are not useless. They are in the same way that a bunch of the stuff
they're not the pure
about, yeah, with like the first turn disadvantage of this edition. If you can, with armies like Guard who have it from Leontis, or Tyranids that run it with Tyrannifexes, it's because you want to make sure your Tyrannifexes are in the optimal position so that if you go first, you can do something, right? It's where's my opponent put their tanks? Okay, cool. I'm in a position to answer them. So if they fundamentally help you do that, like a lot of the time, these redeploys are alpha strike enablers. That's probably the best way to put it. Or they are specifically like scout or infiltrate deny. Like you're going to throw this 20-man squad down in front of your point deployment zone and then yank it away so that they couldn't scout or they couldn't infiltrate there. That's slightly different. And if you've got one of those, it can often be worth it. Like Guard, like doing that with God's Ghost, for example. Nids can do that with Neurolictors or whatever, right? But a lot of the time it's, let's make sure that I can redeploy this Roguldor where it definitely has a target if I go first, right? That's a lot of what you're looking for. Or
Next
you just or again, it's you can tell your opponent, remember, hey, I could redeploy this Dorn, give it +3 move, it can go 13 inches forward, and then your opponent has to deploy as if it's everywhere 13 inches forward, not everywhere, right? Not anywhere. So your opponent loses a bunch of their play space.
Next question is from Truman, which is, what are your thoughts about the design choice of 10th to give every unit a special ability?
Not every unit.
Not every unit. I actually like this design choice more than what I originally thought I would. I kind of like that it gives units kind of a fun bit of thing that usually would be trapped in a stratagem. And since they reduce the number of stratagems, this lets units have a more diverse toolkit and kind of have more purpose. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are bad, but that's just an inevitability. I think actually, though, that overall they've been a boon to most things. Having an ability.
It gives you the ability to be like, this is Marine A, this is Marine B. But Marine A has, impact mortals. Cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that would have been bad stratagems that no one used that you now get to play in the game. I generally like it.
Yeah,
I think they're.
And it means that you then assign
points
points based on that as well.
Jeremy, because the only one I can think of is Death Guard Cultists.
There is another one. Striking Scorpions?
Death Guard Cultists. No, Striking Scorpions have a War Gear ability, right?
Yeah, but that's not a data sheet ability because you could not take that War Gear.
Yeah, Striking Scorpions do not have a data sheet ability.
They have
Infiltrators and War Gear ability, not data sheet ability.
Yeah, but that is you can't not equip them with Manda Blasters. They always have them. That's not a thing that
then why is it a War Gear ability and not a data sheet ability?
Exactly. I don't know, man. I'm not here for this bullshit. I don't write rules. I just fucking make fun of them. All right.
Death Guard Cultists and Striking Scorpions unplayable data sheets because they don't have an ability.
Yeah.
What are
let's not point to the fact that Death Guard Cultists just get sticky objective anyways.
Look, don't worry about it. That'll change when detachments change, though.
All right. Ricard has the next question, and apparently he's a longtime listener, a seldom time question asker. You're skipping over
Truman's second question, which I think is actually a really good one.
I'd also love to hear your thoughts on possible detachment rules. We didn't have a question mark. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on possible detachment rules, design spaces they haven't utilized that seem obvious to you all as interesting, because we seem limited to the same random wheel of 10 army rules for a book in different combinations.
That's not true. GSC ones are all really different.
Yes, the GSC ones are actually quite unique, but that's also because GSC's army mechanic
Some of them are bad, unique. But they're all different. I didn't think the Blood Angels ones were particularly
you had uppy downy, you had I punch better, and you had I punch better when I'm below my starting strength.
Yeah, the Blood Angels ones were particularly inspired.
What I want to see
before that, Custodians were cool.
I want to see something along the lines of give up X to get Y. The idea of reduce your attacks by 1 but increase your AP by 1, or I'm throwing ideas in here, reduce your gun range by half but double the strength, or that's wild. Please don't actually do that. That's a terrible idea. But
those are more like the orcs gain hazardous block stuff.
That kind of thing. That was a very the dread mob mechanic was super fun.
Watching a Stomper kill itself is super fun, yes.
I mean, it can't kill itself from full, but it can kill itself in 2 turns.
Kill itself pretty quickly.
The Chaos Space Marines book had a good diversity of choices from army abilities to stratagems to enhancements. I do think we make fun of GW for having uppy downy all the time, but
it is fun.
Not everybody, but it is fun to make fun of them, but I think it's a little overly reductive.
I bet it was a fun rule, Jeremy. Don't just immediately jump on that.
Oh, but I do think that there is more space where they could be more selective about the units getting benefits in their detachments, but they've done a bit of it already.
Nids has that a ton.
Yeah. And some of it's really neat and some of it is bad. I think really what we want more than anything is for GW to put a little bit more attention into making the detachments relatively more even in power level and interestingness.
I don't necessarily think the detachments have to be even in power level. I think it's okay for it to be hey, these ones are for competitive play, and this one is here because we need one. like there should be a crew detachment, right?
Yeah.
I
Look at
think
the
it's okay
Nomad
for it to like
detachment,
be
the one good one in Custodes.
look if that one guy in the States who keeps going 5-1 with it wants to keep doing that, power to him. But it's very clearly not the one designed for competitive play. And I think it's okay that the books are for more people than just competitive play. Right?
Yeah,
Anvil
sure.
Siege Force is never going to be as good as Gladius. It just isn't unless something is very critically wrong with the game for that to be a thing. Right?
So-
Like that one, you know, it's one for them and one for us. And that's okay.
I think, to be more clear, I do think that there should be more than one detachment that hits well into competitive play, and some books only have one. And when we're operating in a space where some books only get 4 detachments, I think it's better if like more of them are good than are 4 Crusade players.
What you're really saying is Bringers of Flame is fucked.
Bringers of Flame is fucked, and it does take a lot of takes a lot of the air out of the design space for Sisters. Like I would
It's insane how
rather
much better that detachment is than Firestorm, by the way. Like I can't even
it's
remotely-
funny. It is
It's what if Firestorm, but with good units and also cheaper strats.
Dude, it just shows up so much how Marine data sheets are fucking awful so much of the time.
I would have just have loved Penitent being the actual good detachment a little bit more instead of Bringers, which is I run around the table
Is
and bore you
Penitent
to
bad, or are the
smithereens
points
continuously.
too high?
They're too high.
I think Penitent is a great detachment, minus the
points are
fact
too
that you
high.
have to choose an ability turn 1, 2, and 3, and then have nothing on 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think you could probably
Yeah.
remove that and like leave the points where they are and see how it lays.
Or you could
but-
just say in the first battle round, you get this. In the second battle round, you get this. In the third battle round, you get this.
yeah.
Talmik's
or
doing
they
it just fine.
sure. I mean, they could make it advance like that a little bit more, but yes, I do think the points are a little too high on some of the Penitent host units as well. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's insane how fast they go though, and they kind of have to be weighted that highly because of it. And I think the detachment makes itself bad because it's too powerful.
I think there's a middle ground there because those
You can't
units
be
are
balanced, you
also
have to be
very
bad.
If you
intelligent.
can't be balanced, you have to be like,
Eh.
I don't know if you can
I
balance
think
your-
we
your best
excuse too.
50
I think we
engines.
excuse too many things for GW to make a little bit more effort on some things to make things more balanced.
That's fair.
I don't
I'm
think
we
glad they
just-
heard on the
we-
side of
any
caution
help
with
right now.
Sisters.
We lean into that as like a truism just because I think we've been burned too many times by GW trying
It
to
would
do
be
something
it
like
is
that and
nice
then
to
messing
see
it up.
them err on the side of caution with the book release with one of the
Sure.
detachments, if not both of them.
I don't disagree with you there. I do think it's better for them to err on it, but I do think that sometimes it makes me sad. There. All right.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to Rickard's question because I too would like to eventually stop this episode.
It's 1
Um,
a.m.
what are some, and we still have the YouTube questions to go through. What are some things you do when you are starting to get burnt out from playing? Also, I was curious if you have put thought into super heavy walkers that thematically tower over the battlefield, having true line of sight at all times, and why that would be outstanding. And the second question we don't have to answer, but the first
We're not
question
going
is
to,
interesting.
no.
Switch things up. Find things that bring you joy in the hobby rather than drain you. And sometimes just take a break. There's nothing wrong with that. Plenty of people I know have just taken breaks every now and then for a couple months or sometimes longer, and you come back to it.
Mhm.
Like, don't go Mary Kondoing all of your shit because you don't enjoy the hobby anymore, but like take a break, reassess, go find something that brings you joy in the hobby. Like, that's one of the reasons why I built Skaven Tide, because I like building models and they're really cool little, and all the little clan rats are so cute.
I just arrange a
They
tournament
are
ticket with
adorable.
people I like, and then I have to play Warhammer because I don't want to be bad in front of the people I like. So I use shame as a motivating tool. I don't know if that's healthy.
You can also pick up different hobbies. Like you're allowed to go play D&D or something. That's what I do right now to combat burnout because D&D is a little bit more fun than playing endless 40k on a loop.
Nathan, you've
right
played
now.
like 4 games of 4K this calendar year. What are you on about?
It's because I spent so much time doing analysis and content stuff that I burnt out on the hobby through content creation.
Yeah, that's perfectly
That's-
valid.
That's
anything,
the
it's
truth
worse.
of the matter.
You still burned
Yeah.
out from that one Crusade League. And it's just
The one where I had a hive tyrant that ignored invulnerable saves. Yes, I did.
still burned out from that. His playgroup kicked him out, and he's got no one to play with anymore because of that hive tyrant.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually a totally different story about a different Crusade League in 10th that I'll tell at a different point that I'm not going to tell now. Goran asks the next couple of questions, which the first one is, what do you guys think of GW not releasing any new codex this year after Blood Angels? I think it's bad. Personally,
kinda already talked
I
about
think
this.
it's like, I don't think it's great for the hobby and gives them inertia to the point where we're at, and it makes things kind of feel bad.
Especially when we still have half the edition to come out.
It's made it feel really easy to spend a bunch of money on Magic right now because I know I'm not going to have to buy any new models for 6 months. So that's been kind of nice.
And then
it's kind of nice from like a stability perspective. Like we get to prep for the next few months on the balance patch, knowing that not much is changing, and that all the prep you put in right now, if you want to prep for an event in January, like LVO, you're probably fairly stable to just start prepping now, right? Which is kind of nice. But I think it would be nice to have that for a year at the end of the edition rather than 3 months now and 3 months later.
Yep. Then what do you think about Art of War's video from today comparing the win rates from your site with their own tier list?
Sounds like good content.
Yeah, I can't say that I watched it. Like, whatever. Let Art of War do with our data as long as whatever they want, as long as they continue to attribute it to us correctly.
Yeah,
which is
and it drives the discussion about balance. It drives the discussion. Like we talked about this last week when they released their tier list. Their tier lists always have to be taken within the context of what they're being created in. It is their takes on if you were playing at the top level, the top 1% players into each other. This is where those armies rank, and you can do some of that analysis with the dashboard already.
I don't necessarily think that a tier list doing that is great, but whatever, it's fine for content. Tier lists are great content. There you go. And a tier list plus stats.
We should do a tier list of content.
Let's do that next week.
Tier list of Champs Cup teams next week.
Can we do an ELO ranking of podcasts? No, wait, I did that already.
Yeah, you did that already on, what was it, Grim?
I did it on Grim, yes. So if you want to go watch me do a tier list, we won, actually.
Hell yeah.
We won the ELO. Okay.
We're the best.
That was back in the Fight Club days, though, so don't go do that. That's no longer the name of our content. What do you think about... What's the most painful thing you have painted? Thank you, Isaac, for this question. I'm going through rubric hell right now. Every Sisters model has so much shit on it. Every single fucking one.
More details.
Every single Sisters model, you find a fucking nonsense decoration in some weird ass place that you have to paint every time. Every Chaos model also has way too much trim. They were like, what if every trim was a squiggly damn line?
Look, Chaos needs to make up for it somehow. They don't have Daddy anymore.
It's true. The second question from Isaac is, will there be a stat check commander night at Champs Cup? I would be down to bring a commander deck.
Probably the Friday night when the social's going on. Find people who have commander decks and hang out.
Look, I'll be bringing one. I'll bring at least one. Dan's bringing one. I will be there with the deck.
Maybe someone will teach me how to play this game.
I'll teach you how to play. That sounds fun.
Sure.
Like we're like it's a good thing to just like do in the Airbnb when you're done doing pairings prep. So
it's also just kind of a fun way to while away time, especially because everybody's playing pre-cons in this group of people, basically. Also, just for Isaac, bring a fucking pre-con with maybe slight modifications. Don't bring a fucking power level 8 deck
don't bring
and then beat the shit out of people.
No, it'll be a power level 6 or 7
swapping afterwards.
Don't bring a power level 7 deck. Bring a pre-con or a pre-con with minor adjustments. And then your third question is when Vibe Check is, Isaac, and we just said that we'll be doing
in a couple weeks after
pack.
LGT.
Yeah, a couple weeks after LGT. Steven.
Is Champs getting streamed? I actually don't know this.
I believe Joe's going to be there.
Sweet. God, I love Joe.
It's true. Steven has a question. Is there a question here? I am ignoring it.
If Annihilation Legion's 2 Blood Surge threats let them finish an engagement range, would it be an S tier detachment? No, because it's still playing with destroyers.
Me looking through the first statement and then looking through the second statement for a quotation mark to find the question is
Steven, just play Hypercrypt. Stop it.
All right. As someone the last question in the Patreon Discord is from Coco, which is, as someone getting into Rec Cadre, how do you decide when to place low and remove trade pieces or go all in and overwhelm their strong side and prey?
Are you winning?
Who's the beatdown?
Are you winning without changing the game state, or are you losing? Make a decision based on that.
All right. And then because I noted it and told them that we were going to answer this question, Carolyn Turing DS asks, expectations for LGT?
I'm going to win.
Nice. I like that as an expectation. That's good. And then we have 3 super chats that we have to thank. Ben McJurek says, I currently have Nas and Ennis registered for Casa McJurek. 2 souls enter, 1 soul leaves. Please make sure
that someone's soul patch.
Please make sure that Ennis is the one whose soul goes with him when he leaves. That would be great.
Nas already forfeited his for reasons we all know but can't say on air. So
all right. Paul Botelho, thank you for the $1.99, but no question. That saves us some time today. And then thank you to Tim Pinney for $1.99, whose only post is the 3 heads from Easter Island, basically, like the 3 stone heads. I don't know. That's all I got.
Sweet. Those are good heads.
Yeah, they are. All right. That's it for questions. There's no more questions. Yes, Easter. I did that one. I said, Tim Pinney, thank you for the 3 Easter Islands heads and $1.99. What else do you want from me? I do love Tim Pinney. Yes, that is true. He gets all my hearts and affection, and I'm sad that I won't see him at Champs Cup because I won't be there. Not because he won't be there, but because I will not.
Can we get rid of sisters?
We cannot. You cannot get rid of this army that I just completed collecting. Please don't do that to me.
In Crusade only.
Yeah.
Please don't do that to me either.
They're a crusading army, like Black Templars. Black Templars and sisters. Crusade only.
All right. I'm just going to go over...
Remember the attachment in like 9th that was you could play sisters and Black Templars in the same army with like Inquisition?
That would be fun.
No, that was a thing. It was,
I'm sure it was a
thing. Rules. Maybe it was 8th. Maybe it was 7th. I've lost track.
All right, we're going to go over to the Cult of the High Five stuff because that's the thing that I want to do because I'm tired and I don't want to make Innes do any of our end plugs. We're just going to...
It'd be so nice.
We're going to go straight into Cult of the High Five and then goodbye. So if you join the $15 a month tier, you get a bunch of in-person benefits, including crisp high fives, kisses from the polls, stuff like that. Nobody has tried to claim the kisses from the polls yet, which is, I think, the funniest of them.
I'll be claiming
that I know of. You should claim them. But for $15 a month, the other thing that you get, aside from a private channel where you can natter at us in the Discord, is we will thank you at the end of each week based on this spreadsheet that I have that I'm now going to read from
it again, as usual.
It just says this line left blank for purposes of confusion, which I assume is Innes's name or where it's supposed to be. Redacted by the Inquisition.
That's where my name goes every week and I delete it.
All right, here we go. Thank you. Christopher has officially left Scotland for England. Irvine. Well, congratulations, Christopher, on going to the better country for some reason, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble later for that comment. Thank you, Willow Weeks. Thank you, Dan F. Thank you, Luke, Dan F. McCarthy. Thank you, David. Tell them ruin has come to their world.
You did this one already.
It hasn't changed. Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyways. We're going to repeat it. David, you have to update this. Tell them their ruin has come to their world, death, despair, and red war. Tell them their hopes and pride have come to nothing. Tell them their empty whispers fall upon deaf ears. Their gods are dead. Human reason has killed them. Tell them the angels of death have come. Tell them nothing can save them now. Clark. The next one just makes this way funnier. Thank you, Iyer. Skibbity Pop, Dan Iyer Dab. Thank you, James H. Thank you, Colton, Dan F. Miller. Thank you, Fungus. Thank you, John. I would download a car, actually, V8 gang, vroom vroom. Thank you, Cam, F. Dan, Morton, Hog Emoji, Hog Emoji. Thank you, this line, left blank for purposes of confusion, in all red end caps. Not caps, just red. Thank you, Archaon. Thunderhammer says no, Rahal. Thank you, Josiah Gattle. Thank you, Frankie Fresh. Thank you, Isaac. I don't know how I got roped into Champs Cup, but it should be fun. If not, I'm holding Jeremy personal liable. You will hear from my attorney, Tarada, except here is spelled wrong, so I guess you don't have to be worried, Jeremy. Thank you, Ben GW. Please sell me codex codes for the app F. Thank you, Thomas, King of Frisians Reclusion. And the comment here says, at least until the next tournament in Friesland, where I fully expect to lose to another non-Frisian. Don't care, as long as a Frisian doesn't win their own event. I don't know what any of that meant, but it sounded great. Thank you to I'm taking a secret mission. Can you point out all of your battle line for me? Question mark. And thank you. Is this where I write Innes or Dan F? Thank you for all of these. They are amazing. Please join the tier so I can read more ridiculous nonsense. I want more people to post lines from books so that I can read out more books as their name titles because that's just kind of fun.
Oh, no.
I don't know. I kind of enjoy it.
This is going to rapidly escalate if you threaten
That's okay. I don't care. As long as more of you join in order to make me do it, I don't care. You can do it.
It's true. It's easy to read out a book line for $10 a month. So an additional
$15 a month. Yeah, extra 10. Yeah.
Well, it depends if they're upgrading from the little nothing extra tier, and then it's only $8 extra.
True, and then it's a little bit different. But if you join the higher tier, yes, you can have your
Dropped
tower
40
gimmick
viewers during
mentioned,
that
Rickard.
section, by the way.
If you did, I don't care. You can ask me to read, as long as it's not going to get us canceled or in trouble or otherwise in trouble with YouTube. I'll read it on air. Basically, is what I'll say.
Thank you so
Like,
much,
I
everybody.
read
for being with us
emojis,
for
guys.
Episode 106 of Stat Check. Wake me up when September ends. Wake me up when this episode fucking ends. I hope everybody's had a great time enjoying us vamping about previous editions and changes and balance and all that good stuff. Please do check out all of the links in the description. As mentioned, they are the things that keep the lights on, with the lights being Jeremy's editing. So do check them out. They're all in the description. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. If you're at a tournament this weekend, with the very best of luck. Oh my goodness, it's over. I can go to bed.
Bye-bye.